Kai is a below-average human who works for the Urza Foundation, and despite being too weak to actually do anything about it, he still wants to do everything he can to prevent another race war and maintain the peace of this world. One day, he finds a girl chained up on a sky platform, and from the way she looks, she's apparently half angel and half demon, and upon seeing him, she begs him to help free her. However, none of this makes sense to him since angels and demons have been at war with humans for a long time, yet she hasn't said even one racist insult towards him, so he knows something must be terribly wrong. Some time ago, Kai steps out of a car and uses a pair of binoculars to start his observation. Meanwhile, his teammates are sitting in the back of the car and they are bored out of their minds. They hate having to come out here and wait for Kai, but he always observes the graveyard for at least 100 seconds, so there's no way he'd stop in the middle of it. Centuries ago, there had been a long-standing war between the demons, the celestials, the spirits, mythical beasts, and humans, and the war causes a great deal of devastation. So Kai wants to make sure something like that never happens again. He is currently a part of the Urza Foundation, and he has an obligation to observe this graveyard, where the demons have been sealed away to make sure nothing goes wrong. After 5 minutes have passed, Kai puts his binoculars down and reports that no abnormalities have been spotted, so the demons are still properly sealed away. He heads back to the car and they all start heading back to base, but along the way, his teammate asks Kai why he needs to check the graveyard so often when no demons have managed to escape in the past century. Kai acknowledges that the graveyard is decently secure, but is part of their job as members of the Humanity Aegis Agency to make sure that the demons never get out. The girl understands his point, but the guy still complains that there are 3 other graveyard seals in the world, so their patrols are useless if they are only keeping track of this one. Kai assures him that the other graveyards are also being adequately monitored by other agents because humanity can't afford to let a demon get loose. So even if the world is currently at peace, Kai refuses to let his guard down. Back at the agency, Kai is doing some training with a mythical beast simulation. However, the system warns him that it is really dangerous for him to attempt to train with a simulation of this level, since he is certified trash. However, Kai ignores this warning and charges at the dragon before attempting to knock it off its feet. However, the system was right as his attack didn't even budge the dragon, so if this wasn't a simulation, he would have become dragon food. But luckily, Saki is there to turn it off before he gets hurt. She complains about Kai taking too many risks, but he justifies it by saying training is meant to be risky, otherwise he wouldn't be able to improve himself. With how hard Kai works, the girl jokes that his name would have gone down in history if he was around to fight in the War of the 5 Races. But unlike the prophet Sid, Kai knows he's not cut out for something like that. He honestly finds it hard to believe that a human could ever win against any of the heroes of the different races. They were immensely powerful warriors who led their races into battle. Vanessa of the demons, Alfreya of the celestials, Kyoko of the spirits, and Rathi of the mythical beasts. There's no telling what could have happened if those 4 were still around, but luckily, they were all defeated by the prophet Sid. However, that's just the story they've been told since there is no evidence that Sid or his golden sword even exists in the first place. The other heroes all have videos that prove that they were there, but strangely, there's nothing about Sid. Even with the lack of evidence though, people still like to believe that he exists because it is comforting. After that, Seki goes over to Ashran, who got knocked out by the dragon, and tells him to get up since they need to start thinking about their gift for Jin's promotion celebration. Ashran says they can just get her a bouquet of flowers or something, but Saki thinks that is too boring since everyone else will be getting flowers as well. Jin is getting transferred to the royal capital of Urzak for her exceptional abilities despite only being 17, so they need to get her a special gift for the occasion. Just then, Kai receives a message from Jin asking him to meet her tomorrow morning, and she specifically asks for this to be kept secret from Ashran and Saki, but they are already looking at the phone, so they start asking if he is dating Jin. And Kai doesn't want to answer any of their questions, so he just decides to run away. By the next morning, Kai is out waiting for Jin to arrive at their meeting spot, and she soon shows up, clearly having put a lot of effort into dressing up for the occasion. Kai is surprised that she actually showed up on time for once since normally he would end up having to wait at least an hour or so. Jin calls him rude for saying that, but she admits that she was extra careful to be on time for their date since she's going to be transferred soon. Just then, she notices that Kai is still in his uniform despite today being his day off, but that is just because Kai came here right after finishing his morning training, so he didn't have time to change. Kai is literally the only guy who would act so casual about going on shopping with her, but that's what she likes about him. The two of them proceed with the shopping, and while Jin is checking out some jewelry, Kai asks what the purpose of this shopping trip is, so she explains that she wants to get goodbye gifts for Saki and Ashran. She knows they are planning to get her a gift, so she wants to give them something in return before she goes since it might be the last time they ever see each other. Kai says she's exaggerating a bit since her transfer will only last 2 years, so she'd be back here in no time. but then Ashran and Saki would have completed their service as soldiers, so they would be civilians at that point. In fact, in 2 years, Kai and Jean are probably going to be the only soldiers left with the Human Aegis Agency. Kai tries to cheer Jean up by reminding her that she's been working hard so she can take over as the head of Urzak after her father steps down. She's been dreaming about it since she was a kid, so she shouldn't be sad about getting closer to her dream. After that, they go on with their shopping and have a fun time with one another, so by the time they are done for the day, Jin thanks Kai for agreeing to come with her since he made the trip a lot easier for her. While waiting at a stoplight, Jean recalls the time Kai went into the graveyard at the age of 10. He was there with Jean's father, but somehow he ended up falling into the realm where the demons had been sealed. And at the bottom, he could clearly see the fabled golden sword that belonged to Sid, but he doesn't like talking about it since no one would believe it. It was after this that Kai began his mission to ensure that demons would never be unleashed upon the world again, and he still feels the same way now, which is why Jean knows he is still going to be a soldier by the time she gets back. And on that note, she asks Kai if it's possible for them to become more than just friends after she returns, but in the middle of her confession, since there are no fireworks to interrupt her, reality begins to collapse. For some reason, Kai is the only one that can see crazy stuff that's happening, and before he can process what's going on, something called the World Reincarnation Order is executed, and he opens his eyes to find himself in a destroyed version of the city. He is confused at first, but his confusion quickly turns to fear as he sees a demon come around the corner. As soon as the demon notices Kai, it immediately starts casting an attack spell to kill him, so Kai is forced to block it with his weapon case. He managed to survive that initial attack, but the demon isn't done yet as it begins to charge up a secondary attack, so Kai makes a run for his gun, and as soon as he gets to it, he loads some of his special bullets and uses them to cancel out the demon's magic. The demon is shocked that a human was able to cancel out its magic, but it's all because his bullets are made with elven magic as their base, so it is enough to counteract demon magic. The demon tries something different and begins casting a spell at his feet, but Kai managed to jump out of the way and close the distance before firing a point-blank shot that incinerates the demon. Kai is relieved that his plan works since that last bullet is made in order to reproduce the effect of a dragon's fire, but he has never actually gotten to use it before. This is also his first time fighting a demon, so he's glad he was able to move like he does during training. He just needs to hope he doesn't run into a dragon though. All of a sudden, Kai hears a voice coming from behind him, so he turns around and finds another demon staring at him and wondering how a filthy human could have possibly managed to defeat a demon. Kai raises his gun and asks why the demon is able to speak the human language if it detests humans so much, so the demon says he found it easier to order around his human slaves by speaking the language. Kai is shocked to learn that humans are slaves in this world, but the demon refuses to elaborate further and says it will get rid of Kai immediately since he seems pretty dangerous. The demon is about to fire a powerful spell at Kai, but at the last second, someone throws a flashbang, and while the demon is blinded, they pull Kai into a car and speed off. Inside, Kai is surprised to find out that the girl that saved him is actually Saki. Saki says she has never met him before, so she's not sure how he knows her name, and no matter how much Kai insists that they know each other, she still doesn't remember him, and neither does Ashran. Saki and Ashran assume Kai must be having a psychotic episode because of the demon attack, but he genuinely knows them and can't believe they've forgotten about him. He tries telling them that they were on the same team in the Humanity Aegis Agency, but Saki has never heard of the agency and says she's a soldier in the human resistance. Kai has no idea what Seki is talking about, so he asks them to explain what happened in this world. They tell Kai that in the War of the Five Races, humans ended up losing. 30 years ago, the other 4 races took over the world, so humanity was nearly eradicated. And the ones that did manage to survive were all forced to run and stay hidden. Kai is slowly starting to put the pieces together and realizes that this place is the city of Vashel after it had been destroyed. Kai is led down into an underground tunnel while Ashran explains to him that the cities all over the world have been claimed by the 4 other races, and they mostly fight among themselves to claim new territory now. This city in particular was taken over by the demons, which is why humans had to move underground in order to survive. They took some of the underground spaces that were still intact and remodeled them to become a safe haven for humans. This way, they can keep other humans safe and organize troops to fight back against the other races. Kai stops for a moment and asks why humanity lost the war, but Saki and Ashran think the answer is pretty obvious since no humans could possibly defeat a demon on their own, and on top of that, all the races have absurdly powerful heroes, so humans stood no chance. Kai is aware of how powerful demons and the other races are, but humanity was able to win in his timeline because of the prophet Sid, so he asks the 2 of them what happened to him. However, they've never heard of anyone by that name. Kai tries to explain that Sid is meant to be a human hero who defeats all the other races, But he obviously doesn't exist in this world, since humanity wouldn't be forced to live underground if they had someone like that to fight for them. Just then, they hear a commotion nearby, so Saki and Ashran realize that the main corp must be back, so they explain to Kai that there are many underground human cities around the world, and each one has their main corp that defends them. Here, the commander is the one who protects everyone, and Kai can't believe what he is seeing as the commander turns out to be Jane. Jane is greeted by Saki and Ashran, and they tell her about how they found Kai out on the surface, so they brought him inside. Jane compliments them on their good work and walks past Kai, showing no recognition whatsoever. Kai can't accept that Jane doesn't remember him, so he tries to remind her that they were literally shopping together a few minutes ago, but Jane has no recollection of this, so she says she's just going to leave. Before she goes, Kai asks why she's acting like a man when her dream was always to surpass her father as his daughter, and this statement makes her pause for a moment, but Kai is quickly stopped from saying anything more to her. That night, Kai spends his time looking through the records of this world, and everything is the same aside from the fact that all records involving him or the prophet Sid do not exist anymore. However, something still doesn't make sense to him, since if Sid never existed in this world to seal away the other races, then why do the graveyards he created still exist? To investigate, Kai heads over to the graveyard the next day and finds that the blockade stone that was meant to keep its seal has been removed, so he heads inside and discovers the golden sword of Sid inside. He walks up to it and grabs the sword, at which point he hears a voice telling him to never relinquish the sword, because it is the world coordinate key, otherwise known as the code holder. The sword then opens a gate which transports Kai to a mysterious platform, and upon climbing the stairs he finds the half-angel, half-demon girl chained up. Kai is having a hard time figuring out what race this girl is, but then the girl tells him her name is Rin and pleads to be saved once more before passing out. Kai approaches the girl, and he's still debating whether he should help her or not. But Kai mainly hates demons, and she doesn't look like a demon, so against his better judgment, he decides to free her. He tries using his sword to slash the chains in half, but the chains are too tough and show no signs of damage whatsoever. Next, he tries using his bullets, but even that isn't enough to get the chains off. He doesn't know what to do anymore since he doesn't have any other weapons on him, but then he recalls that he's still got that special sword, so he tries recalling what it was called and says the words code holder out loud. As he does this, his gun sword begins to transform into the golden code holder, and Kai can't believe he is really holding the sword Sid used to save humanity in his timeline. He raises the sword and strikes at the chains once more, and for a split second, it looks like he just destroyed the dimension. But things go back to normal, and the chains are cut in half. The girl is released and begins falling to the ground, so Kai catches her, and as soon as she opens her eyes, she gets startled and flies away from Kai, before yelling for someone called Vanessa to show herself. She says she wants a rematch with Vanessa, and it's not fair for her to send a wimpy demon to assassinate her. However, before Kai can explain that he's not a demon, Rin has already begun attacking him because she hates demons. He manages to roll out of the way of the first attack, but he can't do the same for the second energy blast Rin sends his way. He's starting to regret helping her after all. But as the blast is heading straight for him, he recalls something the system mentioned about the code holder being able to sever fate itself. So he takes the code holder and uses it to slash the magic ball in half. The magic disappears, much to the surprise of Kai, and Rin can't believe it either since a lowly demon would never be able to block her attack. Kai finally tells her that he's not a demon, and he has no idea where she got that idea from since he has no wings or tail, so he's clearly human. Rin realizes her mistake, so she apologizes for mistaking him for a demon and attacking him out of nowhere. But she happens to really hate demons, so it's always straight violence on sight whenever she meets one. Since she hates demons as well, Kai at least has confirmation that she's not a demon, but he still doesn't know what race she is, so he asks her. So she begs Kai not to ask her about it. Kai agrees to drop the subject about her race for now, but he still has other questions he would like to ask, like where the hell they are. Unfortunately, Rin has no idea what this place is either. All she remembers is that she was fighting Vanessa, and all of a sudden, she found herself in prison here. Kai recognizes the name and asks if Rin is referring to the same Vanessa that's the hero of demons, and Rin confirms it. He is surprised Rin would pick a fight with a hero, so he asks if she is really that strong, and in response, Rin proudly states that she could wipe out an entire army of demons on her own if she wanted, but from what she has seen, Kai is equally as impressive as her since he was able to stop her attacks. She asks how he managed to pull it off, so Kai is about to tell her about his sword, but just then, he notices a portal behind Rin, which a hideous monster emerges from. The monster says something about the Fate Singularity entity having awakened, and since it poses a great threat to the new world, it will commence protocol to remove it. The monster attempts to strike Rin down, but Kai pulls her to safety at the last second. The power of this monster is no joke, so Kai says he and Rin have no choice but to run, and Rin agrees, so he grabs her hand and they both flee. Unfortunately, they don't know where the exit is, and the monster still has access to the portal, so it reaches its tentacle into the portal and grabs Rin. With this, it declares that it has captured the singularity, so it begins the termination protocol and forms several orbs to erase Rin from existence. Kai can't bear to see this, so he decides to quit standing there and take action to save Rin. He uses the golden sword again, and with it he slices the monster's tendril in half, while also doing significant damage to Dimension. The monster spots him and recognizes that he is holding the forbidden sword, but doesn't understand why the sword is here, or how a human could have gotten their hands on it. Since Rin is free now, Kai doesn't plan on seeing a reason to stick around to find out what the monster is going to do, so he grabs Rin and jumps through the hole in the dimension, leading them back to the graveyard on Earth. Kai is a bit confused, but he is glad they managed to escape in one piece, and Rin is so especially relieved since she was really scared she would die. This is the first time anyone has ever cared enough to help her. Since her entire life, she has been told by all the other races that she is not one of them. However, of all the races, demons were the cruelest to her, always calling her an abomination, which is why Rin got into a huge fight with Vanessa. Kai comforts her and says he knows how she feels since all his friends no longer remember him, so he feels like he is all alone in the world. The history he remembers is one where humans won the Great War of the 5 races, but in this world, it seems demons are occupying the human cities. Rin is a bit confused since she doesn't recall demons ever gaining the upper hand against humans. In fact, right around the time she fought with Vanessa, she recalls that humans were starting to win the war and the demons were complaining that it was all because of the human hero. Kai gets excited and asks if Rin remembers Sid, but she unfortunately never got to meet him, so she can't say for certain. Kai realizes he may have overreacted, so he apologizes to Rin, but at least he has confirmed that he and Rin recall the same past, so they must be the same. Rin gets close to Kai and says that he's the first person to ever group himself with her, and it makes her pretty happy. They both leave the graveyard a little while later, and Rin asks Kai what he plans to do now. But before he can give his answer, Rin collapses to the ground in exhaustion. Kai is worried and assumes it must be because of the attack she suffered earlier, so he helps her up and says he plans on going back to the city since he doesn't have anywhere to go, so he invites her to stay with him while he's there. Rin is hesitant to agree since she says she doesn't want to go to a human city, so Kai asks why and she tells him that she can't trust other people. Kai is the only one she is willing to trust since he saved her, so he says that she should trust that he will keep her safe, and once again asks her to come with him. She is always free to leave if she ends up feeling uncomfortable there, so Rin ultimately agrees to go with him. Back in his room, Kai is lying on his bed while Rin has his shower, and he is absolutely exhausted from the drive back home. Rin had never been in a car before, so she was freaking out the entire time and nearly made him crash a bunch of times. Fortunately, she is able to hide her wings, so once they got here, no one could tell that she isn't human, but she still draws a lot of attention with her weird behavior. She even tried to fight some people with magic at one point, so Kai had to hold her back. But he can understand why she is so cautious since she is surrounded by people she's not familiar with. Kai then shifts his attention to his sword as he hadn't even realized when it turned back to normal, so he grabs it and is about to say code holder to see if he'll transform again. But before he can do that, Rin comes running out of the shower and asks him for help since she can't figure out how to turn off the shower. Kai says he will help her, but for now he can't look at her since she's not wearing any clothes. After the shower is turned off, Rin has gotten dressed and tells Kai that she thinks it's unfair how humans get all the good stuff. Even with the state of human society, they still have such warm water to shower with, while Rin had to bathe in a waterfall. And humans also have such soft beds too, but on the surface, everything was destroyed, so she realizes Kai wasn't joking when he said the city had been occupied by demons. Kai had been skeptical at first, but meeting Rin has confirmed that he's not crazy, so he now knows for sure that they are in a world where the results of the Great Race War were altered. The correct history is the one where Sid became the hero of the humans, but in this reality he never existed for some reason. Rin suggests that they just need to escape this reality and make their way back to the old one. And that's indeed a solution to their problem, but Kai doesn't know if there's actually a way to do that. They go to bed after that, but late into the night, Rin jolts awake and warns Kai that she senses strong magic, meaning the demons are attacking. Outside, the demons have just torn their way through the city ceiling and are beginning to go on a rampage. Kai had already known that humanity was screwed in this reality, but he didn't realize that humans were this helpless against demons and there's no hero around to save them either, so Kai decides that he needs to step up and take the place of Sid for humanity's sake. The defense units begin firing bullets at the demons, but they already know little bullets aren't going to do anything to help, so Saki runs off to go get the machine gun. However, before she can get to it, a demon pulls up behind her and is about to fire a spell at her. But at the last second, Kai jumps in to save her and knocks the demon to the floor. He tells Saki that she should use water against the demons since if their bodies absorb it, they'll become too heavy to fly, and once they are grounded, she should hit them with some grenades. Just then, Kai mimesis Ashran getting turned to stone by a demon, so he fires an anti-magic bullet to interrupt the spell and save his life. The demon proceeds to target Kai and tries to hold him down while another demon comes up behind him to attack. However, Kai slips past him and pushes the first demon away, while Rin blasts the second one. Afterward, Kai thanks Rin for the assist and compliments her on her strength, but even with their combined power, he's not sure they can save the city on their own. Ashran and Seki come running up to Kai and ask him how he was destroying magic with bullets and knocking demons around with his fists. Kai explains to them that he came from a world where humanity won the race war and his fighting technique, along with his special bullets, all come from that world. Saki and Ashran still don't believe Kai is serious about there being an alternate timeline, but before they can ask more questions, Ashran gets a message informing him that 2 demon scouts managed to escape, and if they report back to their leader about the location of this underground city, a whole army of demons are going to show up here and kill off every last human. Ashran says he needs to go report this to the rebel army headquarters, and Saki asks Kai to join them in heading there since his strength makes him a valuable asset, so Jean is sure to welcome him. Kai agrees to join them, so they all head for the headquarters located in the old royal capital. The place was destroyed years ago, but that's precisely why they chose to build their headquarters there since demons wouldn't think to search for them. The one who suggested the location was Jin's father, but he retired as the head of the rebel army 2 years ago due to an injury, so Jin took his place. They soon arrive at HQ and both Kai and Rin are brought to meet Jane. She has already received the reports from Ashran, so she asks Kai to tell her about this alternate timeline he mentioned earlier. Kai tells her everything he knows, but the other officials there call him a liar for daring to make such a bold claim. However, Kai mentions how he was childhood friends with Jean in the previous timeline, and how she always wanted to be like Og and Jur. Hearing those names catches Jin's attention, but she doesn't say anything yet and decides to end the meeting for today. Later that night, Jean asks to meet with Kai, and it looks like she is a little more open to the idea that Kai might have been telling the truth since very few people in this world know that she is a woman and the names Og and Jur were the nicknames of her father and grandfather. However, that doesn't mean she believes everything he said, but his combat skills and knowledge are worth relying on. She tells Kai about a plan she has to coordinate with the other human cities and repel the demons that will be coming to invade Neo-Vashel, but Rin doesn't think that's a good idea since that would only cause more and more demons to attack as time went on. Plus, if a high-ranking demon were to show up, then the whole plan would instantly fail. Jean is aware it's a reckless plan, but she can't think of anything better to protect the homes of the surviving humans. However, that's when Kai suggests that they only need to go after one demon to resolve this, and that's the hero of demons, Vanessa. Jean thinks it's crazy to even consider attacking a demon as powerful as Vanessa, but Kai is confident that the code holder will be able to work against her, so he says he and Rin will be the ones to challenge Vanessa. The demons are more focused on fighting the other races, so most of their forces won't be at Vanessa's side. All Kai needs is for Jean and her forces to hold off the rest of the demons while he engages Vanessa, so after Jean agrees to it, they immediately begin preparation to reclaim the Urza Federation. As preparations for the mission are being made, we hear a bit of Rin's inner thoughts, and while this world's current condition is due to a race war, she is the most racist of them all. She hates all the races for different reasons, with demons being deceitful, celestials being stubborn, and humans being weak. But most of all, she hates herself since she's part of every race. Kai is the only one who didn't reject her for her complicated Ancestry.com results, so she really hopes that Kai doesn't die on this mission. Once everything is ready, the team heads out and goes over the plan one last time. While the main force is tasked with stalling the rest of the demons, this squad will invade the palace through the underground network and defeat Vanessa, while also freeing any human captives they find. Stacky isn't worried about the main force since they should be alright with Jean leading them. What she's really worried about is that their team is meant to go up against the demon hero Vanessa, and there's only 4 of them on this team too. Kai explains that the team is small so they can minimize travel time, and Saki understands that, but she still doesn't understand why she has to be here. Kai understands that she's scared, but she and Ashran are the only ones he can trust to be his backup. Rin tries to comfort Saki and says everything will be alright since she is strong, so she would never lose to anyone weaker than Vanessa. But considering the fact that Rin lost her last battle with Vanessa, that didn't sound very reassuring. Rin says it's alright since this time she'll do whatever it takes to defeat Vanessa, even if she has to self-destruct to take her out, but that still doesn't make Saki feel better. While Saki has been freaking out in the back, Ashran admits that he is really worried as well since there's a lot of things they aren't sure about. They have no idea what state the government palace will be once they arrive. And it's also possible that they get spotted by demons before they ever manage to get there. Kai reassures Ashran that the demons won't be able to find them so easily since they're only sensitive to magic and humans don't possess any magical abilities. Knowing that makes him feel a little better, even if he's still nervous, but he can at least look forward to the glory he will get if they manage to defeat the demons. After a few minutes, the convoy has gotten close to their destination, so Jean addresses everyone and thanks them for standing to fight for the sake of humanity. She knows some of them may be concerned about their chances of success since this plan was made last minute, but with how long humanity has been fighting against the demons, today is the first time they had a clear path to victory. So this is the day humanity makes its last stand. The group charges out of the tunnel and blows a hole open leading to the surface. As they continue to charge, Kai is shocked to see that the government palace is in terrible condition and surrounded by dozens of demons. The demons finally notice the humans, so one casts a freeze spell to try and stop them. But Kai already knows how to deal with that spell, so he leaps over the ice and fires a bullet to disrupt the demon's casting, before using the gun to blow the demon up. That's one down, but there are still many more being summoned by the minute, so Kai turns to Rin, and they agree to work together to take out all the demons. Kai points his gun upwards while Rin uses her magic to give him some extra power, and the resultant blast is powerful enough to strike down all the demons outside the palace. Everyone is impressed that Kai was able to take out so many demons at once, but they got to continue with the plan, so Kai says he and the others will begin searching for Vanessa from the top floor, while Jean assigns the remaining troops to guard the entrance to the government palace and rescue any hostages being kept here. As Kai's group is climbing to the first floor, Fallon is starting to get suspicious, since that lighting attack he just did seemed a little too powerful to have come from his gun alone. Almost as if it was amplified by magic, and she's about to accuse Rin of being the source of that magic, but Jean interrupts and reminds her that Kai and Rin are going to fight Vanessa for their sake, so this isn't the time to be questioning them. As they get closer to the top, Rin spots an imp in the middle of summoning a large demon, and it was already too late to stop it as the demon appears next to them and grabs one of the team members. Fallon jumps in to save the guy by chopping the demon's fingers to pieces. She tells the others that she will hold the demon off, so they should go on ahead without her. She promises that she will catch up once she has defeated the demon, and since they don't have time to waste, Jean agrees and says they should meet back up on the top floor. As the team makes it to the top floor, a bolt of lightning is fired at Jean and she is unable to dodge it, so she gets electrocuted to death. Or at least that's what it looked like. But as the smoke clears, Jean is perfectly fine, and it's all thanks to the elven armor she is wearing. She acquired it some years ago from an elf village, and when it comes to magic resistance, this armor is one of the best suits in the world. And since Jean is able to withstand the demon's attacks, she tells Kai that he can go on ahead to find Vanessa while she handles this guy. As Kai and the others make it to the next corridor, they all put on special armbands to help keep them hidden from the demons up ahead. Rin made these using her barrier magic, but since Ashran and Saki don't know that she's not completely human, she makes up a lie and says the armbands were made by a human instead to mimic an angel's barrier magic. The group proceeds to walk down the hall, but a moment later, a huge Reno demon walks out into the hallway and Saki is scared shitless, so she was about to fire a bullet at it even though she knows it wouldn't have done much. However, Rin tells her to put the gun down and wait a minute, and to Saki's relief, the demon walks past without noticing them. After that, they make their way to the breaker room where Saki and Ashran will be stationed as Kai's contingency plan. He's going to face Vanessa and he hopes to defeat her, but in the event that he can't manage it, their job is to turn off all the lights in the building so everyone can escape to fight another day. Rin tells them that if they stay quiet in here, and no demons should be able to find them, so they don't need to worry about fighting for now. They wish Kai and Rin luck, but as the two are making their way to the next floor, they suddenly hear an alarm being set off. They have no idea what's going on since the barrier magic should still be active, so there's no way the demons can see them. But then Kai realizes that it's probably the infrared security system of the building that detected them. Since the demons know they are here, they run to the next room when they are confronted by the demon general. The two of them immediately get into battle stance, and upon noticing Rin's wings, the demon takes a moment to let Rin know that he thinks her wings are disgusting. Kai steps in front of her and asks the demon if it was the one who restored the building's surveillance system. But the demon says it was actually Vanessa's idea. She was impressed with how well the security system worked, so she decides to have their human slaves maintain it so the demons could use it for themselves. In all honesty, Vanessa was quite pleased with the fact that the humans decides to invade today since she was growing quite bored, and she's curious to know why they decided to do something as stupid as attack the demon's base of operations. Kai asks if the demon would be willing to take him to Vanessa, but the demon intends to kill Kai and Rin for its own enjoyment. Kai is ready for a fight, but before he gets the chance to do anything, Rin grabs him by the arm and flies him past all the demons before throwing him over to the next passageway. She then seals the path with ice and tells Kai not to worry since she will catch up to him once she is done with these demons. Kai hates the idea of leaving Rin behind, but he agrees to go on without her as long as she promises to make it out alive. Rin then turns to the demons and they say they can smell the scent of an angel coming from her, but also that if an angel, elf, dwarf, dragon, and every other race you can think of. They ask what kind of messed up family tree made someone like her, but Rin has no idea what she is or how she came to be this way. But what she does know is that she hates the demons, and the only person she cares about right now is Kai. So if the demons are going to stand in the way of her being with Kai, then she will show them no mercy. On Kai's end, he has just arrived at Vanessa's throne room where she's been eagerly waiting for some entertainment, and at the same time, Jean and her team are still busy trying to take out that demon, but her sword attacks are proving to be ineffective, so as the demon flings her away and tries to burn her to ash, Jean takes some drastic measures and unlocks the true form of her sword and turning it into an elven bow, which she uses to strike the demon down. This time, her attack was effective, but it left her weakened since when elven magic items are used by a human who isn't capable of magic, it will chip away at her life force. Jean knows the risks involved in using it, but she is willing to give up her life for the sake of defeating demons. And besides, what she has had to deal with is nothing compared to Kay's job since he has to fight Vanessa. Just then, another demon crashes into the room from the ceiling, but before it can strike Jean, Fallon returns from her fight and knocks it away. Fallon fights with swords made of drake fangs, which is why she is able to contend with the strength of the demons. The troops outside are currently keeping the rest of the demons from making it inside the palace, but there's a limit to how long they can hold out, so everything depends on Kai's battle with Vanessa. Vanessa asks if Kai would be willing to put down his gun and give up right away. Most people would be surprised to learn that the strongest demon is a succubus, and since she was getting pretty bored, she offers to ride Kai's stick shift to pass the time. Kai immediately refuses, and Vanessa finds him amusing since most men would have folded on the spot after hearing her offer. She had heard that the human rebels had a commander who used elven armaments, so she wonders if Kai is that person, but Kai corrects her and says he's an outsider who came from a world where Vanessa was defeated. Vanessa doesn't believe him at first, but Kai doesn't look like he's lying, so she asks him which race defeated her in his world. She was expecting to hear something like the dragons, but Kai tells her that it was humans who killed her in his world. Vanessa finds this hilarious, so she starts laughing hysterically. You may not be able to see it, but the animation budget was well spent on some very necessary jiggle physics. She asks who was the human capable of killing her, so Kai tells her it was a human named Sid, and as soon as he says that name, memories start flooding Vanessa's mind from the previous timeline, including her knowledge about the code holder and world reincarnation, but a few seconds later, she goes back to normal and decides to kill Kai once and for all. She begins casting a spell, but Kai uses his gun to interrupt it and closes the distance to slash her across the chest, but it turns out to have all been an illusion as Vanessa appears behind him and attempts to blast Kai. Kai manages to escape, and Vanessa is impressed by his reaction speed, as well as his weapon since it is capable of disrupting her magic and can produce a force equal to that of a dragon's breath. But that doesn't change a thing since she's still going to kill Kai, and to do that she casts a Devastation Purgatory Flame spell that nearly turns Kai to ash. He managed to survive that one, but the next spell Vanessa starts casting is an Area of Effect spell, so there's no way anyone who isn't a hero would be able to survive it. However, after she casts the spell, Kai is still standing, all thanks to the code holder. Just then, Kai hears Rin yell for him to stand back, and in the next moment, Vanessa gets struck by lightning. Rin defeated those demons, although it left her pretty badly wounded, but she was so worried about Kai that she rushed over as soon as possible to help him. Kai is worried about her, but they've still got to deal with Vanessa for now, so they prepare for their fight, but unexpectedly, that monster from earlier shows up and grabs Vanessa. It says Vanessa has been corrupted after hearing the taboo word Sid, so is going to erase her code from the world. After seeing it, Vanessa finally remembers Last Riser, and as she is about to get erased, she uses all of her power to break free and blast the monster into oblivion. The monster survives, but it goes. I have made a miscalculation, I ain't built for this, so have a nice day. Kai is shocked by the level of power Vanessa just displayed, so he asks Rin if she was really able to hold her own against someone as strong as Vanessa. But the last time Rin fought her, Vanessa was nowhere near as strong as she is now. Rin knows they stand no chance against her, so before Vanessa attacks, she flies in and tackles her, while telling Kai to run away because she won't be able to hold Vanessa for long. Rin casts a shadow prison barrier around herself and Vanessa to buy time, and while Vanessa recognizes this as the barrier magic of the spirits, is far too weak to hold up against her. Rin gets flung away by the force of Vanessa destroying the barrier, but before Vanessa can finish her off, Kai begins to charge forward to attack. Since he's got her attention, she directs her blast at him instead, and while Kai did manage to block a majority of the damage, he still looks pretty dead to me. Rin can't believe she let Kai get killed, and Vanessa mockingly asks her if she intends to try and avenge Kai's death, or maybe she'll run away on her own. Rin is sick and tired of hearing Vanessa's voice, so she's going to do everything in her power to make sure Vanessa pays for this. As Rin unleashes her full power, her body transforms, displaying characteristics of all the 5 races. Vanessa finds this amusing, but Rin isn't playing games anymore and gut punches the smile off Vanessa's face. In this form, it looks like Rin is able to match Vanessa's power and knock her around, but evidently, Vanessa was just messing with her. She finds Rin's chaotic form truly interesting, but she wonders why Rin didn't use it earlier since that way. She might have actually been able to buy enough time for Kai to escape. She asks if Rin was afraid to show her true nature or maybe afraid that she would be called a monster. Rin begins to cry, but Vanessa reminds her that she has no one here to blame but herself. Vanessa is the demon hero, so she's going to do what she wants. But Rin had the chance to save Kai, and she chose not to go all out of fear, so it's her hesitation that killed Kai. As much as Rin hates to admit it, Vanessa is right, it's her fault that Kai is dead, but that doesn't matter anymore. Nothing she does will be able to bring Kai back to life, so right now, she just wants to die. And she's taking Vanessa with her. She grabs Vanessa's hand so she can place a curse on her. And before Vanessa realizes what's going on, droplets begin leaking from her skin. These blood droplets are Vanessa's life force, and no amount of defense or resistance can defend against it. The drops will continue to fall until Vanessa and Rin both die, so under normal circumstances, this would be checkmate for Vanessa, but she still had one trick left up her sleeve. In the next moment, Rin collapses to the floor, and Vanessa explains that even though the curse can't be defended against, its effectiveness is still dependent on the magical power of the caster. Rin normally would have had enough magic to pull it off, but they are currently in Vanessa's base, so she had certain countermeasures ready in case she was ever attacked by another race, which is why there's a wide-scale curse circle behind Vanessa that affects spirits, magical beasts, and celestials. Since Rin is part of all 3, the curse should be 3 times as effective against her, so it's honestly insane that Rin managed to hold out this long. Rin now can't even avenge Kyle as she wanted to, so she just sits there and says she is sorry for not being useful to him. Vanessa is growing annoyed by Rin's pitiful display, so she prepares to finish her off with one final blast. However, before Rin could be killed, the blast was deflected by Kai, who turns out to be alive after all. He tells Rin that she has nothing to be sorry for, and that she was incredibly useful to him since her fight with Vanessa bought him enough time to regain consciousness. Rin can hardly believe that Kai is alive, and neither can Vanessa, so she asks him how he managed to survive that attack since no human should be alive after that. Kai recalls how he used the code holder to defend himself against Blast, which makes this the second time the code holder has saved his life in this fight. However, he doesn't say anything about it to Vanessa and just gets into stance to face her. Vanessa feels insulted that Kai would dare to challenge her, so she reminds him that he is nothing more than a piece of trash that survived her attack by luck. Her last attack left him on the verge of death, and the only reason she couldn't finish him off was because Rin was keeping her busy. Kai responds that the reason he is so determined to win is because Rin risked her life for his sake, so he's going to do the same for her. Vanessa is now intrigued and asks Kai if he has some sort of plan in mind for how he will defeat her because she would very much like to see what he's got. Humans keep telling her they will show her what human potential can do, but not once has she actually been impressed by a human. The spirit hero, the celestial hero, and the beast hero are all nuisances that get in her way, but at least she can respect them for being powerful. However, when it comes to humans, there is no one whom she can respect among them unless Kai claims to be strong enough to be humanity's hero. Kai tells her that he has no intention of becoming humanity's hero, but she did ask him to show her the potential of a human, so he's going to show her just how powerful a human can be. From this moment forward, he will be facing Vanessa as a representative of humanity, and although Vanessa can't imagine anything he could possibly do to beat her, she decides to take him seriously, so she uses her magic to summon a mini meteor to crush Kai. However, Kai is easily able to slice it to pieces with the help of the code holder. Vanessa is impressed that Kai is able to slice through her magic so easily, but she is still far from done, so she begins casting hundreds of Hellflame spells. But while she's doing this, Kai calls Ashran and tells him to cut the power immediately, so all the lights in the building go out. Vanessa realizes that she can't see even though she's got a literal flame on her shoulder, and since Kai doesn't have any magic, so she won't be able to sense him either. However, even if the human has no magic, the sword is full of magical energy, so she just targets the sword with her Hellflame attack. However, as the dust settles, she is shocked to discover that Rin was the one holding the code holder, and Kai is already behind her. From here, all the years Kai spent training finally come in handy, so he combo locks Vanessa and has Rin throw his sword over to him so he can finish Vanessa off. And the only thing Vanessa says as she is about to be sliced is, "I guess I lost. Good game, human." As Vanessa falls to her knees, her body begins to break apart from the damage she has taken. Rin and Kai can tell that there's something wrong with Vanessa, and this is when Vanessa's memories finally manage to return to her. She now recalls everything about Sid and the world reincarnation. She couldn't believe she let herself fall victim to it when Sid warned her that something like this would happen. After hearing that Vanessa knows about Sid, Kai begins asking her to tell him everything she knows. She tells Kai of a phenomenon which Sid called the world reincarnation. Someone caused this reincarnation to occur and alter the course of history, so Kai has to go and find this person, as it is bound to be one of the other three heroes. Sid had foreseen the world reincarnation, which is why he entrusted Vanessa with his sword to ensure that it wouldn't get stolen by the enemy. It is the one and only key to correcting the alterations made to this world. Kai asks why Vanessa and Sid would be working together when they are meant to be enemies, but while Vanessa did fight with Sid once, Sid earned her respect as a strong fighter and worked together. There's a lot about the previous reality that Kai doesn't know about, so Vanessa warns him to watch out for the Zero Code because it is magic that is incredibly troublesome to deal with. Aside from that, she tells Kai that he did well against her and she was really impressed with him. From his plan to utilize the darkness to his courage and combat skill. She is now sure that this is what Kai meant by human spirit, but she still feels incredibly frustrated for losing to him like this. She can't make excuses, but she would love to face Kai again. So she tells him that if they ever meet again, she's going to have a lot more fun with him. Kai is at a loss for words after what Vanessa just told him, but the exhaustion from the fight soon catches up to him, so Kai ends up falling to his knees, but he is relieved that he actually managed to defeat Vanessa after all. The news that Vanessa has been defeated spreads to all the human survivors, and before long, they've all gathered back at the Urza Foundation to begin reclaiming it. Things are finally looking up for the humans, but while everyone is happy with humanity's latest victory, Kai is still lost in thought about what his next move will be. Rin asks him if something is wrong, and he says he had thought something happened to the two of them, which was why they were the only ones who remembered the old world. But if he is to believe what Vanessa said, then it's actually the opposite, which is true. The world around them got changed, and they were the only ones who remained the same. Rin says she wants things to go back to the way they were since she thinks this world is really scary, and Kai agrees with her, but he still has no idea how they'll change everything back. Just then, Jean comes up to Kai and Rin, and she wants to express her gratitude to them. It may be in ruins right now, but the only reason the humans have been able to reclaim their city is because of Kai and Rin's efforts. That's why she wants to thank them on behalf of the rebel army. However, she can't help but notice that Kai and Rin don't seem very happy despite their victory. Kai tells her that he is actually pretty relieved that he won since he doubts he could beat Vanessa if he ran into her again. Now that Vanessa is gone, humans can rebuild the city to how it was and maybe even better than it has ever been. But that is going to have to be handled by someone other than her. The people who were around when the Federation first fell to the demons would be much better suited to lead the restoration efforts, so she's not going to do it. But if she doesn't want to help rebuild, Kai and Rin ask her what she'll do instead. Jean explains that there are 3 other federations that were conquered by the other races, the Eo Federation, the Yulan Federation, and the Scholz Federation. Each one is currently under the control of one of the remaining races, and each one has a human rebel army fighting back against them. She plans to head over to help launch a large-scale operation to form a united rebel front. The news of Vanessa being defeated has already spread across the continent, and humans everywhere are more motivated than they have been in ages because of it. That is why Jean was hoping Kai and Rin would be willing to come with her and help the other rebel armies. If they work together, they may be able to accomplish the same thing the humans of Kai's original world did and get rid of all the other races. Jean will personally take command of the soldiers and lead them to ensure that Kai and Rin have every bit of support that they can offer, so she wants Kai to fight alongside them. Kai looks stunned for a moment, so Jean thinks it is important to mention that he will be adequately compensated for all this hero work. But it's not like Kai doesn't want to help humanity win the war, he was just thinking about how mature this version of Jean is. In his version of reality, Jean was an incredible person, but she also had a childish side to her. So she would do things like call him in the middle of training time, ask him out on shopping dates, and worry about her future with her friends, but it's hard to imagine this version of Jean doing those things. Kai agrees to join Jean in battling the other races and liberating humanity, so he extends his hand to Jean as a symbol of cooperation, and they shake hands on it. They then head down to the ground floor, and Jean addresses all the soldiers, asking if they have all gotten a good amount of rest, and they are all beaming with energy because this is the first time they've gotten to sleep without worrying about getting attacked by demons. They are all excited to have reclaimed Urza, and Jean informs them of the plan to reclaim the other federations. Meanwhile, Kai talks to Rin and tells her that he's going to put an end to the war of the 5 races himself. If this world doesn't have a Cid to save it, then he's going to have to step up and become humanity's hero instead. And while he is at it, he will find the person behind the world reincarnation and set the world back to normal. The group then set out for the Io Foundation to help the resistance there. But it's really cold, so along the way, Ashran ended up catching a cold. He's also feeling a bit frustrated that after all the work they did to reclaim the Urza Foundation, they didn't even get to enjoy their victory before they got sent out on their next mission. Saki tells him that he shouldn't be complaining since there are requests coming in from all over the country, and right now Jean and her team are humanity's only hope, so they need to do their part to help as much as possible. At the very least, Ashran can look forward to the idea that the royal capital in Urza would have been rebuilt by the time they return, as long as no demons attack it before they can get it fixed. Speaking of which, it's been 5 days since a recent incident occurred. Back at the Urza Foundation, while Kai and Rin were helping out with the cleanup, Rin suddenly began to sense a demon nearby, so she and Kai went to investigate. But as they entered the building, the demon's presence suddenly vanishes, so Rin realizes that this must be a trap and she tries to warn Kai, but it's too late as they had already been caught in a barrier. Just then, a demon appears above them and she recognizes Kai as the human who had defeated Vanessa, and she immediately fires a magic blast at him. Kai wastes no time in pulling out the code holder so he can deflect the attack. However, while he was distracted, the demon girl sneaks up behind him and tries to take him out, but at the last second, Rin intervenes and flings her away. Once there is some distance between them, Kai asks to know what the demon girl's intentions are, but she says she just wanted to greet the human who killed her sister. She introduces herself as Himmerl the succubus, and Kai is feeling the same terrifying aura he felt from Vanessa. When Himmerl heard that Vanessa has been defeated, she had to come to see the human who was powerful enough to take her out. Although, now that she's met Kai, she assumes he must have only managed to defeat Vanessa through a series of lucky events. She's also sure that if all 3 siblings were there, he probably wouldn't have won the battle. Kai asks if Himmerl is here to get revenge for her sister's death, but while Himmerl did love Vanessa, she's not willing to go as far as getting revenge for her sake. With Vanessa gone, she's officially the demon's #1 hero, and unlike Endeavor, she's happy being promoted by technicality, so she's actually grateful to Kai for killing Vanessa, which is why she hasn't really come to fight today. She's here to make a deal with him. She first makes it clear that if she ordered all the demons to gather here, they could easily wipe out Kai, along with all the other humans, and reclaim the capital, but she is currently choosing not to do that, which is why she wants a truce with Kai. Essentially, it would be too much of a hassle for her to gather the demons to attack the capital again, and even if she did, she would be leaving herself vulnerable to attacks from the other races. However, she has some conditions for this ceasefire. The humans can keep the capital, but they must leave all other territories that are owned by demons alone. Kai doesn't like the idea of making a deal with Himmerl, but he says he will pass the message on to Jean. With the mutual truce being agreed upon, Himmerl asks if they can stop being so hostile towards her now, but Rin makes it very clear that they are still enemies regardless of whatever deals they may have agreed to. Himmerl has accomplished what she came here to do, but before leaving, she mentions that Kai is still free to attack the other races as much as he likes, and in fact, she encourages him to do so because it would take a lot of work off her plate if he does. With that, she floats into the air and leaves Kai and Rin to get back to their business, but she stops for a moment to inform them that she will be heading to the realm of the Celestials soon, and she also warns Kai to be careful, because the hero of heaven, Alfrea, has been acting really strange lately. Kai doesn't feel good about trusting Himmerl's word, but right now, he has to leave the reconstruction efforts to the people at the royal capital since he is on the expedition team. For now, he intends to just focus on taking down the Celestials and liberating Io Foundation. The term Celestials refers to the alliance of races including elves, dwarves, fairies, and angels, and they are every bit as cowardly and cunning as humans are, but they are capable of creating powerful magic tools to aid them in battle. So if demons are seen as monsters, and Celestials could be considered enhanced humans. Just then, Jean makes a radio announcement to everyone on the squad and tells them that they will soon be passing the halfway point on their journey to Io, and there's an old radio stop along the way, so she says they can all take a break there and rest before they arrive. Ashran is glad to finally get a break from all this driving, but just when he was finally starting to relax, Rin senses something from above, so she warns Kai, and he looks up to spot a dragon heading straight for them. Once Jean is informed of this, she orders all drivers to move at full speed, while the others will engage with the dragon. They open fire on it, but the dragon's scales are far too tough for their guns to do any real damage, so the dragon manages to get in close and swipe a couple of the cars off the road. Once Kai and Rin finally get into position to attack, Rin prepares a powerful lightning spell, and Kai pretends that he's the one who shot it in order to keep Rin's magical abilities a secret. The lightning blast strikes the dragon, and it looks like it was enough to do some significant damage. While it still didn't kill the dragon, it scared it enough that it decided to leave on its own. Once the threat has passed, Jean grabs a radio and orders all units to halt so they can rescue the people from the cars that got swagged off the road. Luckily, there were no casualties, so the unit set up camp for the night. Kai and Rin get a huge tent to themselves, and Kai feels a bit bad about getting special treatment even though he and Rin were the undisputed MVPs of the team. Also, he reminds Rin that there's a tent section for the women in the unit. But Rin refuses to leave since she wants to stay by Kay's side. Just then, she senses Jean coming this way, and sure enough, a moment later, Jean and Fallon enter the tent. Kai is a bit surprised since he doesn't know what Jean is doing here, but Jean reminds her that this is technically her tent as the commanding officer, and she just brought Kai and Rin here to act as her bodyguards. Fallon gets Kai's attention and asks him to step outside because she would like to have a discussion with him. Outside the tent, Fallon tells Kai that she's going to be standing guard outside this tent all night since Jean is pretending to be a man, and it would be seen as scandalous for Jean to share a tent with a woman like Fallon. Long story short, she tells Kai not to try anything funny while she's not there, but Kai never intended to do anything of the sort in the first place. He heads back into the tent and he sees Jean receiving a massage from Rin, and she's really enjoying it after having to wear such heavy armor all day. Kai takes his seat and mentions how he never expected a mythical beast to attack within the Urza Foundation area, and it's possible that the dragon may have been a scout, which was sent to investigate the humans that defeated Vanessa. If that's the case, then the royal capital might be in danger of being attacked. However, Jean assures Kai that measures have been taken at the capital, so even if a dragon attacked them, they wouldn't be taken down so easily. That aside, there's one other thing she wants to mention before they go to bed, so she tells Kai that she tends to toss and turn in her sleep, and she apologizes in advance for it. Later that night, Kai is lying in bed, and he has Rin clinging to him on one side, while Jean is clinging to him on the other side, and it is taking every ounce of willpower in Kai's body to not give in. The next morning, everyone gets back on the road, and Ashrin notices that Kai looks like he didn't manage to get any sleep at all last night, but Kai doesn't want to talk about it. As they continue to drive, Rin notices a structure outside in the mount, so she asks Saki about it, and Saki tells her that it's the border wall that divides the federations. They will soon be crossing the border, so Jean radios in and tells everyone that their destination will be 8th City, Cassiopeia, which is just outside Eo's capital. As they approach the city, Saki is put on lookout duty, and she says it's important to strike first if they encounter any Celestials, since guns actually work on them. Kai reminds her that she probably shouldn't be so trigger-happy since humans and Celestials look really similar, so she might end up shooting the wrong person if she's not careful. They soon arrive at the location where the human resistance is hiding out, and they'll need to continue on foot from here on out, so they all get out of the cars and begin walking. As they walk, Rin comes up to Kai and tells him that she found some really tasty fruit to eat. Kai tells her she shouldn't eat random fruit she finds, but Rin says it's really delicious, although it does make her tongue feel a little numb. The group eventually makes it to the camp of the Resistance, and they are greeted by all the humans there. The front gate opens, and the Resistance's general comes out to greet the group as well. He introduces himself as Zephyr, and he is honored to meet Jean in person. The news of the defeat of Vanessa has inspired them not to give up hope, so they are really glad to have Jean's team here. Zephyr then turns to Fallon, and he is glad that he lived long enough to reunite with her despite them fighting so far apart from each other, and likewise, Fallon is happy to see that her old master is still alive and kicking. Moving on to business, Jean asks to be taken to see the commander of the rebellion here, so Zephyr tells her to follow him so he can lead her to Dante. However, before they get there, Zephyr asks Fallon if she knows anything about Dante. From what she has heard, Dante is a descendant of the old royal family of Io, and chooses to refer to himself as Emperor. He is also really jealous and suspicious of everyone around him, so it is likely that he views Jean as a threat to his authority. Zephyr tells her she is correct, and he asks Jean to please be tolerant of Dan's behavior because if nothing else, the soldiers here really appreciate her help. As they arrive at Dan's office, they are introduced to his vice commander, Kubari, and she says that all requests made to Dan must go through her, but Rin notices something off about her, although she can't tell what it is exactly. Jean heads inside to meet with Dante, and Dante is immediately hostile towards her for trying to steal his glory. In fact, he never wanted Jean to come here in the first place, but the soldiers decided to ask for help on their own. Regardless of who it was that asked for help, Jean assumes that Dan doesn't like being under the control of the Celestials, which he confirms to be true. And if that's the case, then Jean is still going to lend her aid in any way possible. A strategy meeting is held where Jean is informed of the way the Io Foundation was divided after it was conquered by the Celestials. There are different regions which are controlled by the 4 subdivisions of the Celestials: the Fairy Hideout, the Dwarven Village, the Elven Forest, and the Angel Court. The only problem is that they don't know where the Celestial Hero is, so she asks Dant to lend her some of his best soldiers, and she even offers to lead a search team personally. The fact that Jean is willing to risk her life alongside her subordinates makes the soldiers feel reassured, but Dante doesn't like all the praise she's getting. Later that night, Rin is brewing up some suspicious stew, but Saki and Ashran are fairly certain that this would kill them long before they find any Celestials, so Ashran changes the subject and starts talking about Kuberi. He thinks she was really pretty, but Rin still has a bad feeling about her. The next morning, Jin and the team arrive at the Elven Forest, and at the same time, Dante is busy complaining to Kuberi about Jin's decision to join the search team. He thinks it is utterly foolish for a commander to risk their life alongside the soldiers, and Kuberi knows he's being a bad commander, but she's enjoying every second as she's gaslighting him into thinking he's right and everyone else is wrong. After returning from the expedition, Jean didn't find the celestial hero, but she did manage to map out an area of the Elven Forest, so they are going to begin preparations for an invasion soon. Meanwhile, Kuberi manages to convince Dant that he needs to send soldiers out to invade the Elven Forest as well in order to be superior to Jean, and he is going all in on the plan without any second thoughts. On the other side of the base, Rin reveals to Kai that she has finally figured out what was off about Kuberi. She isn't a human. At the same time, up in the Elven Fortress, the celestial hero Alfreya has just cut ties with the elves and claims that angels are the only race that matters. The elf leader doesn't know what could make him change his stance so abruptly because he had always been so kind to the other celestials. However, the reason for his change becomes apparent when we see the monster behind him. And whatever it did to him has made Alfreya racist towards everything that is an angel, so he raises his wand and prepares to exterminate the elf leader. The elf leader raises her staff to defend herself, but she already knows Alfreya is too strong for her to defeat, so she focuses her efforts on getting her shrine maiden out of danger and blasts her off the sky platform. Ririn is knocked out in the process, but she eventually wakes up in a hut after she was rescued by some elves. Once she is awake, the elves are happy that she's alright, but Ririn asks them all to gather around because she needs to explain just how royally screwed they are. One of the elves asks what they should do with the humans they capture in the forest, and at first, Ririn doesn't think this is the time to be dealing with prisoners of war, but she realizes something. Meanwhile, Jin's team has just arrived in the Elven Forest, and the first thing they see is the signs of the massacre that took place with Dan's squad. The last time any of them heard from Dant was last night, but they never could have imagined this is what happened. As the leader of the rebellion here, he must have been aware of the dangers of the Elven Forest, so she can't believe he would be stupid enough to attempt to conquer it without them. Kai doesn't think this was entirely Dan's fault since there is a high chance that he was instigated into doing this. And the culprit is almost certainly Kuberi, as Kai believes she is an elven spy. If an elf were to hide their ears, they would look no different from a human. And if that's the case, then maybe Kuberi isn't the only spy that managed to infiltrate the rebel army. Jean decides to investigate the matter herself, so Fallon calls over to Ashran and Saki to remind them to watch their back no matter what. They were around during the mission to take down Vanessa, and they performed well, so Jean trusts them enough to leave her rear in their hands. But as she and Fallon continue forward, they are shocked to find an area full of discarded guns and gear. There is no doubt that these belong to Dant and his team, so Fallon assumes they must have fallen for this trap. However, the trap seems pretty obvious, so Jane doesn't know how Dant fell for this. Kai points out that this is just a decoy, meaning the real trap is actually above them in the tree leaves. It's incredibly hard to spot, but Kai remembers reading about this tactic from the history books of his world. Just then, Rin approaches Kai and tells him that he hears something nearby, and it's probably an elf, so they should be careful. Rin follows the scent and leads the others through the forest until she reaches a small clearing in the forest. She can explain why, but the scent just stops here. However, a moment later, a light starts to shine from beneath their feet, and the next thing they knew, they had all been teleported to another part of the forest. Upon landing, there's a little mishap between Ashran and Saki, where Ashran may or may not have accidentally found out what Saki's ass feels like, but that's besides the point. Right now, they are now deep within enemy territory, so they need to stay vigilant so they don't get caught off guard. All of a sudden, they see a little fairy girl run out of the bushes while chasing a butterfly, and she's so focused on getting the butterfly to become her friend that she barely pays attention to the group of armed people in front of her. She eventually bumps into Ashran's leg and falls over, so now that she realizes that there are other people here, she asks what part of the forest they are from since she assumes they are all elves. But she finds it strange that she can't sense any magic coming from them, so Ashran clarifies that they are actually all humans. After hearing this, the girl is scared out of her mind and runs back into her village to get away from the scary humans. The others follow her, And as they arrive at the entrance to the elf village, the guards immediately draw their bows ready to defend against the intruders. However, they are ordered to stand down by Qibri. Jean confirms that Qibri is a celestial spy and questions her about what she did to Dante's team. Qibri says Dante and his team are still alive, but they inhaled quite a bit of paralytic pollen, so they won't be able to move a finger for at least a few days. Jean immediately demands that Qibri release the hostages she has taken, and Qibri says she is fine with letting them go, but only under one condition. She wants them to fight against the angels and defeat Alfrea. It should be easy for them since they managed to defeat Vanessa, but Kai and Rin wonder why the elves would want to take down the angels when they have always been so close to one another. Qibri doesn't like the idea of fighting the angels, but the elves have no other choice now as Alfrea has betrayed them. Qibri tells them all to follow her into the village so they can meet Riren. And this is the first time that humans have ever been here. So while they won't be welcomed as guests, they should take pride in the fact that they were allowed to enter. Riren introduces herself as the Shrine Maiden of the village, and she asks if these people are really the ones who took down Vanessa. After getting her answer, she points out that the garment Jean is wearing beneath her armor is of elven origin, so she asks where it was gotten from. Jean explains that it was initially in possession of some demons, but the humans defeat them and acquire the garment. This means the garment was likely stolen by the demons first, and since Jean didn't take it directly from an elf, Riren isn't going to create a fuss about it. Getting back on topic, Riren says they will release their prisoners, but in return, they would like Jean's team to rescue their village elder from Alfrea. Kai is shocked to learn that Alfrea was the one who captured their elder, so Riren explains that something has changed about Alfrea. He always used to be so kind and gentle, so for him to turn around one day and tell them that they must become subservient to the angels made no sense to them. That's why the village elder and Riren went up to Alfrea and tried to reason with him on behalf of the other Celestials. However, Alfrea refused to hear them out and captured the village elder instead. Riren just barely managed to escape with her life, but Alfrea is now refusing to even hear them out at all. Riren says she will guide Jean and her team there, but this is something they must do on their own. However, if Riren really wants them to do this, Fallon asks for some kind of guarantee that this isn't a trap, since if they were to go through with this and ended up getting ambushed by both angels and elves, there's no way they could make it out alive. Qibri acknowledges that the team would be taking a huge risk by accepting the request, so she offers to put her life on the line as well. She says she will accompany them on the mission, and if at any moment they have reason to believe that this was a trap, then they are free to kill or do whatever they want with her. However, Fallon thinks this is unacceptable as they are putting the lives of 6 of their best soldiers on the line here, not to mention the lives of all the hostages, so Quibri's life alone isn't worth enough to be collateral. If that's the case, then Riren offers to go instead. She says it is only right that she put her life on the line since it was the elf leader who was captured, and besides, if she doesn't do anything, it would be the same as accepting the angels as their new masters, so she feels like she has to do this. For now, she wants to avoid the possibility of a civil war among the Celestials as much as possible, so she tells all the fairies and dwarves that had gathered to go back to their posts and refrain from taking any unnecessary actions. Once all the other fairies and dwarves have left, Riren asks Silt to prepare some lily pad seats for the humans so they can start talking about the details of the mission. Later that night, Rin is sound asleep while Kai stays awake to keep watch, but Riren can't understand why he is bothering to stay awake so late into the night. She promises that she won't attack him in his sleep, at least not until their contract has been completed, so he can rest assured. Kai decides to trust her for now, so Riren sits across from him and mentions that she heard that Kai and Rin are the ones who took down Vanessa, so she wanted to ask him a question. She understands that he wants to keep the details of his power a secret, but she wants to know if his power will work on Alfrea. From the way she is talking, it almost sounds as though she's asking Kai to kill Alfrea, but that's not exactly what she means. By tomorrow morning, they will be heading to the Angel's Palace, and they will surely end up fighting Alfrea, so if Kay's power proves to be insufficient, they will just end up dying together instead. She also warns Kai that if he attempts to run away out of fear, then she will do everything within her power to make sure that he doesn't leave this forest alive. Kai says he understands, but now that she is done talking, there's something he would like to ask her as well. He wants to know if she has ever heard of a human named Sid. However, to Kay's disappointment, Riren has never heard of Sid before. From what Vanessa told him, his best bet at finding the person behind this world reincarnation is to face each of the heroes. The next morning, the group is getting ready to enter the Angel's Palace, and it's apparently above this tree, although they probably won't be able to see it. There are actually several floating fortresses around here, but the one that is above them is considered to be the Angel's Palace. Ririn activates a double-layer teleportation circle beneath their feet, and Kai is surprised by the extent of the system they put in place to keep the palace hidden, so he asks if it is a countermeasure against humans. However, Ririn says they never considered humans to be a threat, so the measures were made to defend against spirits, demons, and mythical beasts. If that's the case, then Kai assumes that the majority of the Angel soldiers will be stationed at the borders of the region, while only a few remain as palace guards. They teleport up to the palace, but as they arrive, Ririn smells something terrible, so they move forward to confirm the source. And to her horror, she finds a room full of angels badly injured and on fire. They are all thankfully still alive, but Ririn wonders who could have done something like this. However, they have no time to investigate because they still need to get to Alfrea, so Ririn takes them to the next level of the palace. This section consists of several floating platforms, so Fallon is glad they have Ririn as a guide since it would have been difficult to traverse this area. However, as they move up to the next platforms, they are immediately attacked with a wind spell from the War Angel Vicious. Ririn can't believe Vicious is betraying her as well, but Vicious says she is merely doing what Alfrea would want her to do. Seeing Vicious's stance on the matter, Ririn asks if she was the one who injured all those angels outside. Vicious answers that those were the angels who refused to obey Alfrea's new ideology, so they had to be punished, although it was Alfrea who personally delivered the punishment for their disobedience. In fact, the elf leader is going to be executed later today in order to send a message to all the elves, dwarves, and fairies that they cannot stand against Alfrea. Vicious then attacks the group, so Kai fires a bullet to distract her, while Fallon runs up to her and uses her swords to blast Vicious away. After which both Saki and Ashran both open fire on her. They tell Kai, Rin, and Jean to go on ahead without them while they hold off Vicious. Vicious wants to go after Kay's group, but the bullets being fired at her force her to focus her attention on Fallon's group for now. In the meantime, Kay's group has made it to the next platform, but as they begin running across, they are attacked by an angel wearing full body armor. Rin manages to hold her own against Raffaello, so she tells the others to go one ahead without her while she handles him. Kai, Jane, and Ririn make it to the top of the palace where they find the village elders still trapped. But she's not the only one here, as Alfrea looks down at them and asks why people keep choosing to disobey him. He claims to be a benevolent ruler and a merciful one at that, but the only people who are entitled to his blessings are his fellow angels. At the same time, Vicious launches another attack at Fallon and the others, so Fallon jumps out of the way after warning Saki and Ashran and runs towards Vicious to slash her. Vicious is able to block this attack, but she now recognizes Fallon's blades as Drake Fangs, and she has heard that the impact force they generate is close to that of a mythical beast. Fallon is surprised Vicious knows what these are, but Vicious says it's only natural, that she would know about it since Celestials are known for their skill with magical tools. However, Fallon finds it pretty ironic that Vicious is supporting the enslavement of those same skilled Celestials. On the upper floor, Rin has just knocked Raffaello down with a powerful strike, but Raffaello slowly gets up from the rubble and tells her he is impressed that she was able to break through his divine guard so easily, so he will do her the honor of acknowledging her as a threat. Rin knows he is BSing, though, since her attacks aren't actually doing much damage to him. She hates how composed he is and how angels look down on others like they are better. However, Raffaello was too busy feeling better than her to hear what she said, so he instead asks her what she is because he can't figure it out. Rin says she doesn't know what she is, and she won't be taking a DNA test either because she doesn't care about her origins as long as Kai stays with her. And speaking of Kai, he is still facing off with Alfrea, who declares that he will now execute the great elf leader. Ririn refuses to stand for this, so she yells that Alfrea has no right to declare himself as the ruler of the Celestials and charges forward, but Alfrea just looks at her like an insect and casts a spell to squish her where she stands. Luckily, Kai jumps in and pulls out the code holder to counter Alfrea's spell, leaving Alfrea stunned because he didn't realize a human could do such a thing. He asks to confirm that Kai is really a human and not an elf in disguise, but even if Kai is really human, it makes no sense to him why a human would willingly risk his life for an elf. Although it's pretty simple, if something bad happens to Ririn, then the rest of the elves are going to execute human prisoners, so it makes sense to keep her safe. Alfrea still doesn't understand since Kay's life should be more valuable to him than anything else, and if his judgment was off even by a little bit, he could have been vaporized along with Ririn. But for him to be so confident that he could block it, the sword he is holding must be special in some way. Kai doesn't deny that the sword is special, because it was at least powerful enough for him to go toe-to-toe with Vanessa. Upon hearing that Vanessa was defeated, Alfreya breaks out in hysteric laughter at the realization that she foolishly let herself be killed by a puny human. Kai tells Alfreya that he's in no position to call Vanessa a fool because at least she didn't try to eliminate her own subordinates. However, Alfreya says that he can decide what he does with them. He is the most brilliant spire of heaven, so he has no desire to call anyone who would disobey him a subordinate. Jean is done listening to Alfreya's narrow-minded speech, so she draws her long bow and fires a shot at him. Alfreya raises a shield to defend himself, but Jean's shot breaks straight through it and leaves a small cut on his cheek. Alfreya is surprised that Jean is using an elven bow, so he asks her if she is aware of the consequences something like this will have on her body. Jean says throwing her life force away is nothing to her, but this is the first time Kai is hearing about this, so he is worried and asks her what she means by that. However, they don't have time for a conversation, so she says she will explain later. Alfreya launches a thunderball at Jean and she attempts to counter it by firing another arrow, but the arrow does nothing, so she ends up getting hit with the blast. However, after the blast hits, Jean seems to be fine, and it's all thanks to the elven garment she is wearing. With it, she will be able to withstand most magical attacks, but Alfreya is becoming infuriated by the fact that Jean is using celestial equipment against him, so he plans to eliminate her with his Light of Judgment. As the light is about to strike them, Ririn finally does something and uses her magic to put up a shield around them all. She refuses to let herself be saved by humans more than once, and Kai is happy that she will fight with him, but he still thinks it would be better if they could make this a 4-against-1 battle, so he and Ririn go to find a way to free the Great Elder. Alfreya spots them heading towards the crystal, so he throws a divine spear at them, which forces Ririn to put up another shield. But this time, the shield isn't strong enough to stop Alfreya's attack, so Kai has to step in and slash the spear in half. Alfreya is frustrated that a human is countering his attacks, and while he is distracted, Ririn jumps onto the crystal and attempts to use a dagger to free the Elf Elder. However, her plan fails miserably as the dagger shatters upon contact. Ririn can't believe what just happened, since that dagger was one of the strongest magic tools elves have ever made. So far, none of this makes sense to her, because to begin with, the Elf Elder possesses power that is close to that the heroes, yet Alfreya sealed her so easily. He summoned a spear that easily shattered her shield, Holy Light with a belt, and a red sword, all in the span of a few minutes, and even if he is a hero, using this much magic in such a short amount of time shouldn't be possible, so she wonders where he got all this power from. Maybe it has something to do with why he suddenly changed, but Alfreya denies anything of the sort. This is merely a cleansing in celebration of his new subordinate, Last Riser. Meanwhile, Rin is locked in heavy combat with Raffaello, and she's pretty much losing, so he tells her to try harder. However, Rin can tell that Raffaello is holding back for some reason, although he won't admit it, and after she gets spiked across the floor, she finally decides to ramp things up and throws a punch that knocks Raffaello's helmet clean off his face. At the same time, Fallon's team is still fighting Vicious, and while Vicious is distracted with Fallon, Saki and Ashran begin firing bullets at her wings, since that's the source of an angel's magic. Vicious notices this and dodges in time, but she fails to dodge the grenade, so she gets blown up, and while she is disoriented, Fallon sneaks up behind her and delivers the finishing blow. Back to Rin after she knocked Raffaello's helmet off, he calmly sits down and tells her to hurry and join her friends. With her power, they might be able to free the Great Elder from Alfreya's seal. Rin asks if Raffaello lost on purpose because he doesn't agree with Alfreya, and while Raffaello still doesn't admit anything, he says that on the day Alfreya first changed, he and Vicious immediately noticed that something was wrong with him, but they couldn't outright confront him about it, so they bided their time until the right moment so they could stop him. As Vicious is being held at blade point, she says she wants to tell Ririn and the Great Elder that she is sorry for her actions, so she wants Fallon to deliver the message after she has been killed. Fallon realizes that Vicious was never actually trying to kill them, and it makes a bit of sense since Vicious could have just attacked from the sky instead of engaging in a sword fight if she really wanted to win. Because of this, she decides not to kill Vicious after all and instead asks her to take them up to the floor where the others are fighting Alfreya. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Alfreya orders Last Riser to attack, so it moves forward and unleashes a pressure wave that hits the others hard, but it literally sends Jean flying. Luckily, before she could get sent off the edge of the map, Jean is saved and uses the opportunity to fire an arrow at Last Riser. The arrow connects, but it does absolutely no damage to Last Riser. Jean thanks Rin for saving her, and she definitely wants an explanation as to why Rin has wings, but that can wait until they are done with the battle. Rin takes Jean back to the ground, and she is shocked to see Last Riser standing in front of Alfreya. Kai asks Alfreya if he is the one who is behind the world reincarnation, but Alfreya has no idea what he's talking about. Since it doesn't look like he knows about it, Kai asks him if he remembers the prophet Sid, and at first, Alfreya still has no memory of him, but the memories slowly begin coming back to him as he recalls that he received something from Sid. Last Riser sees Alfreya remembering shit, and she will not stand for it. So she grabs Alfreya by the neck and begins executing the Zero Code to erase Alfreya from this world. Kai and Rin recognize this as the same thing Last Riser tried to do to Vanessa, and Alfreya was clearly remembering something about Sid. But even the thing took 3 to 5 business days to finish erasing Alfreya, not a single one of them did anything to stop it. After a while, Last Riser is finally done erasing Alfreya, so the only things left behind are his magic tools. None of them really know what to make of the situation since Alfreya is gone now, and Last Riser just begins teleporting out of there as well. The group came here to stop Alfreya, and he is gone now, so this means they won, or at least it would if the boss music had stopped playing. A few seconds later, purple light erupts out from the floor and Alfreya returns, but something is different about him. His wings are much darker than they used to be, and he sounds really different as well. He says he is Alfreya's avatar, and Ririn is confused by the sudden change, but one thing is certain, that's not the same Alfreya anymore. It says it will now overwrite the memories of the celestial hero, and Kai recalls how when this whole mess started, it all began with the world being overwritten, and whatever overwrote the world is now overwriting Alfreya. Alfreya now believes that throughout heaven and earth he alone is the honored one, so all else must be incinerated because nothing can be as perfect as him. Alfreya casts a spell to incinerate the group, so Rin puts up a shield to protect everyone. However, Alfreya's power is too great for her to defend against, so the blast eventually overwhelms her shield and causes a huge explosion. Rin is knocked to the floor along with everyone else, and Ririn notices something terrifying while she is on the floor. Alfreya just used magic of an incredible scale, and all without needing to channel his power through a magic item. Even if he is a hero, this should be impossible since an angel would never be able to pull off anything even close to that. But Alfreya says he is no ordinary angel anymore. He claims that this is the work of the heavens and his power now shines like a star, but Ririn tells him he is wrong and tries to talk some reason into him. He is clearly delusional because he hasn't realized that his wings are losing their bright color. All this power he is using isn't enhancing his strength, it is just chipping away at his life force. There is a reason Celestials take pride in using their magic with the aid of their magic items, but Alfreya has forgotten all about that and now takes delight in using magic without any tools. This goes against everything a Celestial would stand for, but Alfreya doesn't want to listen to her tell him that he's a disgrace to Celestials, so he prepares to cast another spell at her. Ririn sees this coming and prepares to defend herself using a multi-layered shield. Alfreya's attack breaks from the first few layers, but is ultimately stopped. Ririn says that no matter how strong the spell may be, a single spell will never be a match for the full power of her magic shields. Alfreya hears what she says, and that's nice and all, but he just summons a sword and pierces straight through all her shields. Ririn ends up getting stabbed, and she can't believe Alfreya actually managed to break through her shields with a single attack. But before Alfreya can finish her off, Kai steps in and defends Ririn. Kai tells Alfreya that Ririn really looked up to him, and somewhere in her heart, she was hoping he would snap out of this and go back to normal, but Alfreya says he has no intention of going along with the fantasies of a weakling like Ririn. Kai knows Alfreya would never say something like that, so he is sure that this isn't the real one. This is just a cheap imitation that is replicating Alfreya's powers. As Kai continues to battle, Alfreya's sword regenerates every time it breaks, which is why it was able to break through Ririn's shields so easily. Alfreya proclaims that the power he wields is absolute, and with him as the hero, there is no need for any other magic items or celestials, so they should all bow down and become his slaves. As he says this, he uses his powers to summon the Divine King's sword to finish Kai off as a hero would, but Kai points out that Alfreya keeps calling himself a hero when the whole point of a hero is to fight for the sake of other people, not enslave them. However, Alfreya is too far gone to accept Kai's logical statement and calls that the ideology of a weak race. Alfreya tries to strike Kai down with the sword, but unfortunately, it isn't very effective since Kai is just better at sword fighting than Alfreya is, so every time the giant sword is swung, Kai is able to skillfully block it. Alfreya realizes there's no way he can beat Kai in a sword fight, so he decides to change tactics and tosses the sword before ordering the Angel Palace to collapse. If he can't win a fair fight, then he'll just take Kai out with fall damage instead. Ririn what Alfreya is planning, so she pleads with Jean to assist her so they can take Alfreya down. Meanwhile, Kai makes a desperate charge towards Alfreya in an attempt to kill him before the Angel Palace falls. However, Alfreya has gone defensive and puts up a shield in order to buy time until the palace falls. Kai eventually manages to break through the shield and land a nasty slash on Alfreya, but he then zones out for a bit and gets his throat grabbed by Alfreya. He was expecting Alfreya to come to his senses after being slashed by the Codebreaker, just like Vanessa, but something is clearly different with him. At the same time, Ririn and Jean are working together to line up the perfect shot to take out Alfreya with their combined power. They only get one shot, so Ririn reminds Jean that she has to be careful not to miss. Jean understands, and as soon as Alfreya is within her crosshairs, she unleashes the blast, completely carving through the left side of Alfreya's body and forcing him to release Kai. Alfreya is enraged by the damage done to his perfect body, but before he can use any more magic, Kai gets back up and places his hands on Alfreya's chest before punching him in the stomach to finish him off once and for all. That last punch was enough to release Alfreya from Last Riser's influence, so he has now come back to his senses and deeply regrets all the things he has done. Ririn is glad to see Alfreya is back to normal, but he tells her that the palace is going to fall out of the sky soon, so she and the others need to get away from here as soon as possible. He no longer deserves to be called the Celestial Hero after the horrible things he has done, so he asks Ririn to tell all the Celestials that all the chaos was his fault. He doesn't have much longer left to live, so he turns to Kai and tells him that he received a message from Sid the last time he saw him. He said something was supposed to exist in this world. He's not sure what Sid was talking about at the time, but he seemed very frustrated by it. Before he dies, Alfreya tells Kai that the cause of the world's reincarnation is hatred among the races, and as his final wish, he asks Kai to destroy the hatred that lurks in this world. Following this, Alfreya disintegrates and the Sky Palace eventually crumbles to the ground. Alfreya's subordinates hear the full story from Ririn, and they are disheartened that Alfreya met his end, but they are also glad that everyone else managed to make it out in one piece. Raffaello blames himself for not noticing the change in Alfreya until it was too late. Kai asks when Alfreya's behavior first began to change, so they tell him that it was around the same time that Last Riser became Alfreya's subordinate. Kai knows this can't be a coincidence, but it makes no sense why Last Riser would attack Alfreya if it was his subordinate. Last Riser was also present when Kai first rescued Rin from her prison and only attacked after he set her free, so it's almost like it's monitoring individuals of interest, and that means it might attack Rin again at some point. A while later, Rin wakes up from a nightmare where she is being hunted by Last Riser, and the first person she sees after waking up is Kai, so she hugs him for comfort. Kai is glad to see that Rin is alright since he was getting worried about how long she's been asleep. Jean interrupts the touching moment, and Rin is startled because she hadn't realized Jean was sitting there as well. Now that the fighting is over, Jean says she wants an explanation for why Rin has wings and can use magic. She hears the whole story, and it now makes a lot of sense why Falin was so cautious of Rin at first. Jean also had a feeling Rin wasn't exactly human, but she never could have imagined that Rin doesn't know what race she is. Jean asks why they kept it a secret all this time because it's not like she was going to burn Rin at the stake if she told the truth. On second thought, Jean totally would have killed Rin if she knew Rin wasn't human from the start, so it was probably for the best that it was a secret up till now. After all the things Rin has done to help humanity, it's hard for Jean to think of her as an enemy, and Rin is glad to have someone else who accepts her for who she is. Kai feels like he should tell Saki and Ashran as well, but he isn't sure how they will react, and the news may end up spreading to the other soldiers, so Jean thinks it's better if they just keep Rin's story a secret for a bit longer. Now that the discussion is over, Jean has a very serious request for Rin. She wants permission to cuddle Rin's fluffy wings, and Rin is a little confused, but she allows it and Jean begins caressing her wings, and Kai doesn't know how to feel about what he is seeing. The next day, the group meets with the elves to finalize the terms of a temporary peace treaty with the elves. The humans will avoid entering any part of the elven forest for 1 year, and in return, the elves will stay away from all human territories as well. Jean agrees to those terms and promises to ensure that the Eo resistance abides by the treaty, so the truce with the elves has officially been formed. Jean and Kai are then presented with gifts, but they are a little confused since they weren't expecting to receive anything. This is their way of showing gratitude for all the help Kai and Jean offered in taking down Alfreya, because it prevented a nasty civil war for them. Jean receives a reconstructed version of her sword to replace the one that she lost while fighting Alfreya, and Kai receives a set of anti-magic bullets. Rare noticed how Kai was using them, so she talked with the dwarves about it, and they found it really interesting, so they made these bullets for Kai. Ririn mentions that she personally smelted the iris ore for the bullets, so she wants Kai to make good use of them. The elf leader asks if the group intends to fight against the spirits or the mythical beasts next, but Jean apologizes and says she can't reveal her plans to them. The elf elder understands, but regardless of where Jean intends to go from here, they are going to need to pass a section of the elven forest to get there, so she suggests that Jean's team might need a guide. Jean agrees that a guide would be very helpful, but she doesn't know why the elf leader would offer to give them a guide. The elf elder explains that she wants a representative to accompany the team because they need to find out what caused Alfreya to change. She recalls that Alfreya first began to act strangely when he confronted an intruder 10 years ago. It was the hero of the mythical beasts, Wrathy, and the confrontation was anything but peaceful. Rafaela witnessed the whole thing, as both heroes battled each other for hours on end, but at some point during the fight, it looked more like they were conspiring with one another. Soon after that, Last Riser appeared at Alfreya's side, so they suspect Wrathy might have something to do with it, and they want to send a guide with them so they can finally learn the truth. Riordan thinks it's cruel of the Elder to send someone to accompany the humans since the person would effectively become a hostage, and if either side were to break the truce, the guide would be the first one to be executed. She feels sorry for the poor sucker who gets selected to be the guide, but the Elder tells Riordan that she is that poor sucker. Riordan is in disbelief because she was never informed about this before, but the Elder says that's because she made the decision right now. Even if that's the case, Riordan doesn't understand why she of all people was chosen, so she explains that she chose Riordan since she has clearly taken a liking to Kai. During this entire discussion, she hasn't left Kai's side even once, and Rin calls her out on it because she believes Riordan is trying to steal Kai away from her. Riordan denies trying to make a move on Kai and asks Kai to back her up on this, but Kai just says he would be happy to have her as a guide, so Riordan has no choice. After that, Jean returned to the Io rebel army to inform them of everything that happened and the truce they made with the elves. It will only last 1 year, but it's a good step towards ending the war. Jean then turns to Dante and thanks him for preparing a generous amount of supplies for her team, and he still doesn't like Jean, but he can admit that she has delivered outstanding results by defeating the celestial hero and forming a truce with the elves. It's without a doubt a great victory for humanity, but the same tactics won't work anymore. Now that humans have defeated both the demon and celestial heroes, the other races will no longer think of humans as insignificant weaklings. As such, the rebel armies are going to need to cooperate with one another more than ever so they can defeat the beasts and spirits. Danny mentions that he has heard great things about the commander of the Yulin rebel army that fights against the spirits in the south. He's called the Lion King Balamon, and he is apparently an old acquaintance of Fallon's, so she can confirm that he is as skilled as the rumors say. If Fallon truly believes that Balamon is a trustworthy commander, then they are going to need to form a good alliance with his rebel army because they will be heading into a head-on battle and sneak attacks aren't an option anymore. Dante is making some really sound points here, so Fallon tells him that he has the potential to be a leader for all of humanity as long as he is capable of setting his ego aside. But Dante doesn't think he is worthy of such a role and says it is much more suited to a commander like Jin. Jean says she has no intention of taking on a role as grand as the leader of humanity. All she wants to do is end the war between the 5 races, so she needs to get moving before the spirits or mythical beasts make their move. Meanwhile, Wrathy is sitting by a waterfall, awaiting the arrival of the spirit hero Kyoko. Once she gets there, Wrathy begins talking to her about how surprising it was for Vanessa to be the first one to fall, and then the way Alfreya died was just disappointing because his downfall was caused by his half-hearted attempts to resist Last Riser and ultimately failing to control it. With all that said, Kyoko and Wrathy are the last heroes left standing, so Wrathy wants to take this opportunity to wipe the spirit hero off the face of the earth. As soon as she hears that, Kyoko hits the jets and starts flying away, but Wrathy chases after her and kicks her down before trying to stomp her into the ground. In retaliation, Kyoko transforms herself into a blob of water and surrounds Wrathy in an attempt to suffocate her, but Wrathy covers herself in a fiery aura that keeps the water away, but that doesn't stop Kyoko from grabbing and dragging Wrathy through the forest. She then slams her into the groin again for good measure, creating a crater in the forest, and it looks like Wrathy is at a huge disadvantage, but there's a surefire way to turn the tables in any one-on-one fight: cheating. Last Riser pops out of Wrathy's back and grabs Kyoko by the face before attempting to execute the Zero Code on her. Kyoko realizes she's getting jumped, but it's too late to escape Last Riser's grasp, so she ends up exploding. Wrathy believes she has successfully killed Kyoko, so she praises Last Riser for doing a good job in taking her out. Meanwhile, Kai and the others are making their way into the forest, and they are surprised by how wide the roads are, so Riordan explains that these are the roads that the Okrut are in use. No one has any idea what that is supposed to mean, so Riordan goes on to explain that she is talking about the huge hedgehogs that roam through the forest. They are rarely seen, but they are 10 meters wide, love collecting gold rings, and could easily crush a car if they wanted to. After hearing this, Saki and Ashran get a little worried because those hedgehogs seem like they could be a huge threat. However, Riordan tells them that there's nothing to worry about since there's only a very small chance that they all get squished. This is the fastest way to get to the south, so they just have to take that risk. Rin says she's not okay with this, but not because of any dangerous hedgehogs, rather because Riordan is sitting up in the front next to Kai. Ririn says it's unavoidable because she's the one giving directions through the forest, and Kai agrees with her. They are bringing her along under the alias of a representative from the EO Foundation. And since it would cause a huge commotion if other humans found out that Ririn is an elf, Ririn tells them that her clothes have illusion magic inbuilt, so as long as the person doesn't already know her, she will look like any other human out there. Just then, Jean calls on the radio to get a status report from Kai, and nothing seems to be out of order, so Jean asks Ririn how long it will take before they get to the Yulun Foundation. Ririn tells her that they should be able to make it there in 3 days if they keep up this pace, and in the meantime, there's a location up ahead where they can set up camp for the day. Jean is glad everything's going as planned, but just then, Fallon notices something strange, so she gets Jean's attention and asks her to come check it out. There's a section of the forest that looks like it has been eaten away by something, and she thinks it is the work of a mythical beast, but that makes no sense since they are still in the region of the EO Foundation that is controlled by the elves. It looks like the mythical beasts have begun crossing the borders to invade the other territories, and that makes the risk factor of this journey far greater. Back at the battle site, Raffi is looking through the splattered pieces of Kyoko, and it certainly looks like she died. But there aren't enough Kyoko chunks around for Raffi to be sure, so she assumes Kyoko must have escaped with her core. She's a little frustrated that she couldn't get the job done, but there will be other opportunities to kill Kyoko in the future, so she decides to let it go for now and walks into the forest. Back with the group, they set up camp for the day in a clearing in the forest, and everyone takes a refreshing dip in the hot spring. After Kai has had his turn in the hot spring, he is tasked with guarding Jean's tent, while the girls take a dip. And while he knows he can't go with them, he is really worried that the girls might end up fighting with one another over there. Kai was right to be worried because not even 5 minutes go by before Ririn and Rin start arguing about whether Oppai is truth or flat justice reigns supreme. Jean interrupts their important debate and asks the two of them to listen to her because she has something important that she would like to discuss. She was talking with Kai about the code holder and world reincarnation thing, and he doesn't know much about the details either, but he definitely knows that the code holder wasn't made by human hands. Jean warns him that using it may be dangerous, but Kai tells her that it is far more reckless for her to be using elven weapons when it drains her life force. Jean agrees that it's not ideal, but without it, she would barely be able to help in fights at all, so she doesn't plan on ditching her weapon anytime soon. More importantly, they need to talk about Last Riser since it keeps showing up. It mortally wounded Alfrea and was even there when Kai fought against Vanessa, but Kai has no clue what it's supposed to be since there were no records of it in his timeline. However, from what Kai has seen, Last Riser is probably monitoring the heroes, and it attacks them if they somehow hear the word Sid and start remembering things. Jean wonders what kind of relationship Last Riser has with the remaining heroes, and there's no way of knowing whether it's subservient or hostile without encountering the hero first, so they are just going to have to keep fighting the heroes until they can stop the race war altogether. Back to the present, Ririn agrees that Last Riser is a serious problem since it was able to change Alfrea, and they still have no information on it. They decide that from now on, they'll keep an eye out for Last Riser whenever they are fighting a hero, but Rin is terrified at the idea of running into Last Riser again. She doesn't know why, but whenever she sees Last Riser, she is so scared that she can't move. Jean apologizes for bringing up such a scary topic, but just then they feel a violent tremor, so something must be happening in the camp. Two soldiers are faced with a mythical beast, so they begin shooting at it, but their shots are totally ineffective against it. Kai soon arrives and recognizes the mythical beast as a behemoth, so he charges at it and fires a special bullet into it which actually does damage. Fallon soon joins him, so she and Kai work together to outmaneuver the behemoth, but while they are definitely hurting it, it isn't enough to take it down, so she throws a flashbang to blind it and orders everyone to retreat. Kai is surprised that his modified Drake bullets weren't able to kill the behemoth since it was specifically designed to take these things down, and that leads him to a horrifying realization. This version of the mythical beast is stronger than the ones from his world. The girls have returned, so Jean starts ordering the troops to get into formation so they can effectively handle the threat. They need something much stronger to take it out, but they don't have any heavy artillery on hand because they weren't expecting to face a mythical beast out here. Fallon offers to go buy some time against the beast so Jean can get the rest of the soldiers to safety, but Jean doesn't intend to run away and asks Kai if there's some other way to defeat it. If they intend to fight the beast and spirit heroes, then they can't let themselves be pushed back by an enemy like this, and Kai agrees with her reasoning, so he tells her that the beast has a magic organ on its body that's a weak spot, but the issue is how they will attack it. Jean thinks for a minute, and since this is part of the Celestial Forest, then Ririn should be able to help them out with terrain. They work together to come up with a plan and begin luring the beast deeper into the forest, and once it is close enough, Fallon gives the signal for Kai to hit the beast with the paralytic mushroom spores that the elves used to capture Dan's team. The beast should now be disoriented, so Rin casts a massive lightning spell to stun it, and Kai jumps down to deliver a point-blank shot to its head. However, even after all this, the beast keeps going and tries to attack Rin, forcing Kai to step in and defend her. However, before the beast can do any more damage, Ririn activates a teleportation circle below the beast and sends it somewhere else. Ririn is pleased that their plan worked so well, as the beast fell from the trap and is currently being burnt to a crisp as they speak. Jean is satisfied with their victory, but then she notices something wrong with Kai, so her smile fades as she runs to check on him. Rin is standing over Kai in tears as he has suffered a severe wound to his shoulder as a result of his attempt to protect her earlier, and she blames herself for causing him to get hurt. Kai explains that the beast was still able to sense magic, so when Rin cast her spell earlier, it was able to locate her and try to take her out. And there was no way Kai was going to stand by and let her get hurt, so this was an unavoidable outcome. Rin doesn't like seeing Kai like this because he is obviously in a lot of pain right now, but he is much more concerned with Rin's well-being than his own, so he asks her if she's okay. Rin says she isn't hurt, and Kai is glad to hear that, but he definitely isn't doing too well, so Jian and Ririn come over and help patch him up. Eventually, they get Kai back to camp to give him some proper treatment, and while he is unconscious, he begins having a dream about a mysterious voice in the forest calling out to him to wake up and come to it as the child chosen by fate, and the one who touched upon the taboo code. Kai soon wakes up from his dream, and it looks like he wasn't the only one who heard the voice, as Jean has the same dream as well. He recognizes the voice from the dream, and the location it was calling him to is somewhere within the Elven Forest, so Kai asks Ririn to help lead everyone there so they can investigate it. Outside, Ashran and Seki were packing things up so they could get back on the road, but then Ashran receives a message from the group saying that their plans have changed, so everyone should wait behind until they get back from their mission. And Saki intends to use the short break to get some extra hot spring time in. Meanwhile, the group is heading into the forest with Ririn, and she has nothing against taking them to the building Kai saw in his dream. She doesn't think there's anything special about it since it's pretty much just an old stone statue. She went to visit it a while ago because she was interested in the intricacies of human structures, but Jean is shocked that a structure all the way out here was really made by humans. Ririn tells her that it wasn't made by the Celestials and that the only other race capable of making it are humans. Kai realizes the building must be a megalith, although none of the others have heard of it, so Kai explains that there were several of them in his old world, although they were called graveyards. They were special buildings made to seal away the other races, but in this world no one knows about them. The code holder was hidden in one of them. Once they arrive at the megalith, they hear a voice telling them to come inside. The voice assures them that there is nothing to be afraid of apart from the fact that it's a disembodied voice. This is the center of the world, and as the ones chosen by fate, the voice will welcome them. Ririn is confused by Kay's reaction since she's the only one who didn't hear the voice, so Kai asks her to wait outside and stand guard while they go inside to investigate. Ririn agrees to wait outside, but she still doesn't think there's anything strange in the structure that is worth investigating. As Kai and the others enter though, they can tell that there's definitely something suspicious going on here. The interior design is a lot like the graveyards from Kay's old world, and Rin can sense energy that is similar to hers coming from this place. The group eventually arrives at a room with a giant statue in the middle of it, so they approach it, and that's when they hear the voice talking to them again. The voice is coming from the statue, but tells them that there's no need to be afraid since it could hurt them even if it wanted to. It is a being that existed in a world where the War of the Five Races had ended, so it had been eagerly awaiting the chance to meet Kai since he is an eligible successor to Sid. Kai is surprised to hear that the statue knows about Sid, but the statue knows a lot more than he thinks. And after getting a closer look, he realizes that the statue is actually the prophetic god who gave Sid his powers. She was known as Arsla Soleka, the praying god who can see into the future. Jean is a bit confused about all this, as Kai reminds her that the prophet Sid is the one who ended the race war in his world, and Arsla is the one who gave him his prophecy. They can hardly believe that they are standing in front of a real god, so Arsla explains that she has been worshipped by humans for generations, which is why when the war broke out, she created the code holder in order to give humanity a fighting chance. However, since history was changed, this world doesn't have Sid in it, so she's glad that the code holder ended up in the hands of someone trustworthy like Kai. Getting straight to the point, she tells the group that she has a prophecy for them, and she wishes she could offer them more help. But this is the most she can do for them at the moment because of her current state. She used up most of her strength when she made the code holder, which is why she was unable to stop the world reincarnation from happening. But speaking of the world reincarnation, Kai still doesn't know what the world reincarnation actually is, so he asks Arsla if she can give him an explanation. Unfortunately, even Arsla doesn't truly know what the world reincarnation is, but what she does know is that this world has been overwritten with a false history. The existence of Sid has been completely erased from this world, and as a result, the history where humans won the war has vanished as well, leaving behind this fake reality. Jean refuses to believe that the world she and the other humans have been fighting for is nothing more than a lie, and she wonders if there was even a point to all the sacrifices they've made. Ursula assures Jean that her efforts weren't meaningless, and in fact, because of humans' will to survive, the world reincarnation is still incomplete since humanity still exists. Jean is relieved to hear that, but Ursula goes on to say that they all still have a mission to fulfill, and that mission is to correct the world to the way it used to be. Ursula then appoints Jean as the new prophet and asks her to take Sid's place as the hero of humanity. Jean asks why Ursula is choosing her, so Ursula explains that she has watched over this world for a long time, and with humans constantly being oppressed by the other races, there are only a few candidates worthy of replacing Sid, and Jean just happens to be one of them. Of course, Kai was the most obvious choice since he has already defeated 2 heroes with the code holder, but since he technically isn't meant to be in this world in the first place, Ursula thought it would be more fitting to choose Jean instead. Jean asks what she is supposed to do as a prophet, and Ursula tells her that she just needs to continue doing what she normally does, leading her subordinates and fighting to defeat the 4 heroes and Last Riser. Once that is done, the world will be restored to its normal state. Kai asks if Ursula knows anything about Last Riser, but she hasn't got a clue since Last Riser never existed in the original world, so she has no idea where it came from. Jean has one final question before they leave, so she asks Ursula if she knows what will happen to this world once they accomplish their mission and stop the world reincarnation. Ursula says it depends on the level of erosion at the time, because the world could either revert to the way it was before or stay the same, and there's no way of knowing exactly what will happen until the time comes. With all that said, Ursula tells Jean to get out there and become humanity's new hero, so the group begins to leave, but as they are walking out, Kai notices that Rin seems a lot quieter than she usually is, so he asks her if something is wrong. Rin says she's fine, but when they were talking with Ursula back there, she couldn't tell if Ursula was dangerous or not. Ursula's voice sounded very comforting, but at the same time, it gave off bad vibes, so she's not sure if they can trust her. Kai understands Rin's apprehensions with Ursula, but at the very least, since she was the one who created the code holder, whatever her intentions may be, Kai knows that she's at least not the enemy of humanity, and that's all that matters for now. As the group exits the ruins, Ririn yells at them for leaving her out here for so long. She asks if they found anything in there, and Kai is about to tell her all about their encounter with Ursula, but Jean cuts him off and says they didn't find anything after all. Ririn believes her, so the group turns to start heading back to camp. But before they go, Ririn grabs Rin's arm and asks for a favor. She just spotted some spirit fruit up in the trees, and she wants Rin to help her pick them since she has wings. While Ririn is trying to convince Rin to do it, Kai has a talk with Jean about her becoming humanity's new hero. Jean is still feeling a bit uneasy about this, but Kai assures her that he will be by her side the entire time and he will do whatever it takes to help her end the war. Jean feels a little better now, and she acknowledges that they are already trying to end the war, so the prophecy from Ursula doesn't change anything. However, she still finds it hard to believe that there was another version of her in the world Kai came from, so she asks Kai what kind of relationship she had with him in the other world. Kai tells her that she was his friend and colleague in the other world, so she asks if he would like to be friends with her in this world as well. Kai agrees to be her friend, although he already thought they were friends after all the things they've gone through together. Jean finds it funny that Kai makes it sound so casual, because any other human in this world would be freaking out if Commander Jean asked to be friends with them. Just then, Rin and Ririn return from their fruit picking, so the group gets moving. A little while later, the entire squad is back on the road, and Ririn is trying to convince Kai to drink some juice she made from those berries she gathered with Rin. She says it has medicinal properties and will help heal Kai's arm, but Rin doesn't trust the suspicious juice, especially because it smells like shit. Ririn admits that it may stink a little, but she says it is perfectly safe and tries to prove it by drinking some of it herself. To her credit, the juice definitely isn't harmful, but it still tasted so bad that she puked all over the place. Ririn is never going to try that shit again, but since she drank some of it, Kai has to do the same. While he does that, Jean announces that they have made it to the Yulin Federation, so she wants everyone to be on high alert since they could be attacked at any moment. Saki decides to do some recon, so she climbs out of the truck roof to get a look at the surrounding area. While she's up there, she sees a strange building in the distance, and after she describes it, Kai believes is one of the graveyards, so the convoy stops to investigate. Since they are in the Yulin Federation, that graveyard must have been the own that was used to seal away the spirits in Kay's world. But speaking of spirits, Rin is sensing a bunch of them nearby, and it looks like they've already surrounded the group. In the next moment, dozens of spirit blobs descend from the sky, so Jean yells for everyone to get into defensive formation and begin firing at spirits. The bullets seem to be working at first, but the slime-like bodies of the spirits begin absorbing the ammunition, so Jean orders the soldiers to retreat to their vehicles so they don't get captured by the spirits. Fallon runs up and tries to use her swords to take one of the spirits out, but even the Drake Fang's blades can't seem to do any damage to them. Kai tells her that the spirits have shapeless bodies with magical organs as their core, and the only way to destroy them completely is by burning them, but they don't have the firepower to do that against this many spirits. Luckily, reinforcements soon arrive as the Yulin Rebellion commander orders his men to begin using their flamethrowers, and in a few short minutes, the massive gathering of spirits has been burnt to a crisp. The remaining spirits begin to merge in the sky, but Balmung isn't going to let that happen, and smacks the spirit mass all the way across the plains. Now that the threat has been taken care of, Balmung goes over to greet Fallon since he hasn't seen her in a while. He then says he's glad that Jean and her troops are alright, and he begins complimenting them for being able to hold it so well against the spirits even though they were surrounded. But then he starts going on a rant about how difficult spirits are to fight, and Fallon immediately starts walking away. Balmung yells for her to come back because he's not done talking, but Fallon has spent enough time with him in the past to know that they'll be standing here for hours if he starts talking too much. Balmung can't argue since he knows she's right, so he agrees to save his stories for later and tells his men to start packing up. However, before they can leave, Rin senses the presence of more spirits, and a moment later, a massive spirit shows up and envelops all the vehicles. Both Jean and Balmung order all the soldiers to fire everything they've got at it, but all their weapons prove to be useless against the massive spirit. Just then, Kai gets an idea, so he tells everyone to get ready to retreat once he gives the signal. Kai then climbs on the roof of one of the cars and loads one of the sacred light bullets he received and fires it at the spirit, thus creating a massive hole in the spirit and allowing everyone to escape. As they are leaving, Balmung compliments Jean for having a friend as skilled as Kai, but before they return to their base, there's a small detour he would like to make since he and his team originally came out here on a recon mission. Jean agrees, so Balmung leads them to a strange black lake. He had received reports that something strange was going on here, and after seeing it in person, he can say for certain that this isn't normal because the lake is black and there wasn't a lake here yesterday. Rin corrects Balmung and tells him that this isn't a lake at all. It's a spirit, and as soon as she says it, the spirit rises up and begins to form itself. And to their shock, it turns out to the hero of spirits, Kyoko. Kyoko fires a high-pressure blast of water at Kai, so he jumps out of the way and avoids getting pink-misted in one strike. Kyoko then turns the water into a giant wrecking ball and crushes one of the vehicles, so Kai goes on the offensive and uses his sword to cut Kyoko in half. And to make sure she stays down, Kai tells Balmung's soldiers to use all the firepower they have, so they proceed to torch the upper half of Kyoko's body. Unfortunately, Kyoko doesn't seem to be struggling as she just absorbs the fire and reforms her body. She then takes a deep breath, so Kai realizes she is about to do something big and warns everyone to get back. A moment later, Kyoko sends a massive wall of flames towards everyone, so Kai is forced to bring out the code holder in order to block it and save everyone. Surprisingly, Kyoko seems to recognize the code holder despite this being the first time she's ever met Kai, and it's also weird since spirits aren't meant to be able to talk. The second Kyoko starts remembering stuff, it sets off Last Riser's sensors, and now that it knows Kyoko is in contact with the code holder, it's going to have to take action. Back on the battlefield, Kai knows he heard someone talking, but spirits aren't capable of speaking, so he doesn't think it could have been Kyoko. Kyoko interrupts him and asks why he has the code holder with him when it is supposed to be owned by a particular human. Kai still can't believe a spirit is capable of talking even if it is the hero of spirits, but he is curious to find out how much information she has, so he asks if she is talking about Sid. Kyoko wasn't sure before, but now that Kai mentions Sid's name, she remembers everything perfectly, specifically how much she hates Sid. She views Sid as the enemy of all spirits, but at the same time, she acknowledges that Sid also made her a lot wiser than she was before. Kyoko learned to speak the human language so that she could understand the words Sid spoke to her while he was locking her away. It was something about the world reincarnation only being the beginning of the true catastrophe. Kai has a lot more to ask her, but as he looks up at Kyoko, he sees Last Riser's portal behind her, and right on cue, Last Riser pops out and grabs Kyoko's head. It's about to execute the Zero Code and erase Kyoko from existence for saying the word Sid. But this isn't Kyoko's first time dealing with Last Riser, so she's easily able to break out of Last Riser's grasp and retaliate. As soon as Last Riser realizes that this isn't going to be an easy sneak attack, it decides to give up and run away. After Last Riser had retreated, Kyoko reforms her body and returns to the ground. She could continue fighting the humans, but she doesn't really want to, so she tells them she's done for the day. Balmung thinks it's a little suspicious that Kyoko suddenly doesn't want to fight anymore and accuses her of trying to trick them, but Kyoko calls him stupid and says she is proposing a ceasefire. Balmung yells that she is the one who attacked them first, but Kyoko says it was an unavoidable misunderstanding because she thought they were trying to ambush her while she was regenerating. Kai wonders what could have happened to Kyoko that required her to spend so much time regenerating, so Kyoko explains that she was fighting Rathy earlier and Rathy was really tough, but Kyoko had much more trouble handling that monster. She remembers that Cid used to call the monster Last Riser, and naturally all the heroes want the best for their race, but Last Riser isn't part of any race, which is what makes it so dangerous. She says it is an existence of pure hatred and an enemy to all creatures of the world, so they need to stop it. Balmung doesn't fully trust what Kyoko says, but Jean assures him that it's the truth. Last Riser is a much bigger threat to them than the spirits, as it has attacked humans and demons, as well as the Celestials, so a ceasefire would be in the best interest of all the races. Balmung still doesn't want to agree to it since he has spent so much time fighting the spirits and he still considers them the enemy, so he doesn't think it's right to suddenly coexist with them. However, Jean tells him that she has already made ceasefire agreements with both the demons and the Celestials, and while she doesn't intend to forgive them for how they've oppressed humanity, establishing non-aggression pacts will prevent any further losses, so she thinks it's a good idea to take the offer. Balmung eventually agrees to a truce with the spirits, and since there's nothing more for Kyoko to do here, she says she's going to leave now. But before she leaves, Kai asks where she is headed, so Kyoko points to the Black Pyramid in the distance. She finally remembers the graveyard, and she recalls that the graveyard is where she first met Last Riser. Last Riser showed up after Cid disappeared, and the different heroes all had mixed reactions to it. Vanessa looked down on it, Alfreya was disgusted by it, and Kyoko was a little cautious, but she didn't really care about it at the time. The only one who truly accepted Last Riser was Rathy, and they've been working together ever since. Kai asks if Rathy is doing it to get stronger, but Kyoko is sure that isn't the case since Rathy is way too proud to rely on someone else's strength, so Rathy probably has a goal other than just winning the race war. By now, Jin and the others are prepared, so they are about to head into the graveyard to investigate, and Kyoko asks Kai to lead them to the entrance since he knows a lot about these structures. They arrive at the entrance, and it's the same kind as the demon graveyard he found in the Urza Federation, so he leads them to the room where he found the code holder. Kai walks up to the pedestal in the middle of the room to inspect it, and as he does so, the code holder begins to react, and he hears a recorded message from Cid. Before Cid disappeared, he recorded this message and apologizes because he made a mistake and he couldn't protect Rin, so he wants whoever has the code holder now to reach the place in his stead. The code holder then begins to project a bright light onto the wall, and before long, a portal is opened which sucks Kai in along with all the others. Before they realize it, they find themselves on the mysterious platform where Kai found Rin, and neither Balmung nor Fallon like where this is going since it feels like they are being lured into a trap. They ask Kai for an explanation, but he has no idea what's going on either. He may have been teleported here once before, but he never got the chance to learn the story behind this place. With that being the case, they aren't going to learn anything by standing around, so Kyoko begins walking since she senses a massive source of energy in this direction. The group follows Kyoko's lead, and they soon arrive at a separate platform where they find something surprising. There's a statue of Alfreya here, and upon further inspection, Ririn can sense magic coming from it, so she believes this is the real Alfreya under some sort of petrification spell. She thinks she can undo it if she is given enough time to analyze the spell, but Balmung still isn't really on board with the whole ceasefire thing, so he wants to take this opportunity to smash the hero of the Celestials. Ririn obviously doesn't want to let him do that, so she holds Balmung back, and while that's going on, Kyoko takes a look at Alfreya, and from what she can tell, this isn't any ordinary petrification spell. The stone-like appearance is only on the surface, and it's much more like Alfreya was frozen in place, likely due to the effects of the Zero Code. The presence of Alfreya's body is sending up even more red flags, and to make matters worse, Last Riser shows up again. It says intruders have been detected, so it initiates a defense protocol to secure the sealed body of Alfreya. After a quick scan, Last Riser determines that 3 of the people here are positive for the taboo word, Cid, so they are a top priority for destruction, and the others don't really matter, so Last Riser just teleports them away. Rin is worried about the others, but Kai thinks they are probably fine since Last Riser mentioned that it was excluding them from the destruction protocol, and that probably means it just sent them back to the graveyard. Based on what Last Riser said, Kai realizes that Last Riser is going after the people who have memories of Cid because it views their existence as an inconvenience to its plan. So for now, all they can do is fight back. Jean and the others ended up being sent to some fields outside the graveyard, and Jean immediately starts walking back to it because she intends to go through that portal again and help Kai. Balmung asks her if she really thinks she stands a chance against that creature, and Jean isn't confident that she can make a difference, but she has a last resort she can use. Ririn realizes Jin intends to use the full power of her elven gear, but she warns her against it because it will shorten her life dramatically. And the portal to that dimension has already closed anyway, so there's no way for her to get there right now. Jean asks what she's supposed to do then, so Rin tells her that they need to come up with a plan first, and Balmung agrees, saying they'll come back once they are fully prepared themselves handle the threat. To that end, there's something Ririn would like to try, but she'll need some help to get it done. Meanwhile, Kai, Rin, and Kyoko are still battling Last Riser, and Kyoko tries using her water blast to attack, but Last Riser uses the Zero Code to erase the water. Kai tries to take advantage of the distraction and attack, but he isn't managing to do much damage. While Kai is keeping Last Riser busy, Kyoko goes over to Rin and asks why she isn't helping them fight Last Riser. Rin says she wants to, but she is so scared of Last Riser that her body won't let her move. Kyoko doesn't have time to try to convince Rin, so if she's not going to help by fighting, Kyoko at least wants to make use of Rin's magic, so she absorbs some through Rin's hand, and once Kai is separated from Last Riser, she encases it in ice and shatters it to pieces. Kai is amazed by Kyoko's power, and her ice attack was definitely lethal, but it turns out that killing Last Riser isn't enough to make it die, as it returns from a portal. Kai finds it strange that Last Riser could recover from a fatal attack so easily, yet it gave up at the slightest opposition back when it was fighting Kyoko and Vanessa. That leads them to believe that Last Riser is only capable of regenerating when it is within this dimension, so Kyoko asks Kai if there's a way for them to get out of here. Kai tells her that he used the code holder to slash a hole in the dimension last time, and Kyoko doesn't like having to rely on the code holder, but it looks like that's the only option they have. Before that though, she grabs Alfrea, and Last Riser begins freaking out since Alfrea is apparently a high priority, so Kyoko plans to use it to lure Last Riser outside. They all start making a run for it, and Kyoko shoots some fire at Last Riser to slow it down, but Last Riser shrubs the fire off and sends it back at them, so Kai uses the code holder to block it. Luckily, as he does this, he accidentally creates a hole in the dimension, so they waste no time in jumping through to escape, and Last Riser frantically chases after them. Once they are back in the real world, Kai uses the code holder to weaken Last Riser, and Kyoko immediately uses lighting magic to blast her until there's nothing left but a pile of ashes. At the same time, Ririn is hard at work at a makeshift forge because the human bullets aren't effective weapons against Last Riser, so she wants to give them an upgrade so they can help Kai. However, a loud boom is heard from the graveyard, so they are all left wondering what's going on in there. After Last Riser was reduced to ash, Kai and Kyoko thought it was finally over, but to their horror, they saw a tendril emerge from the portal, and all the way across the plains, Ririn is frozen in fear because she just felt a terrifying amount of magical energy. This is Last Riser Aspect 2, and this is the version that imprisoned Rin in that dimension before Kai found her. It is much stronger than the previous version, and it says it is going to delete them from this world. This was the end of episode 11. Subscribe to not miss the next part.